Eric, are you going to cover for Tony? Welcome. I'll call this meeting to order. Thank you all for showing up and being here. It's quite a interesting meeting we got ahead of us, so we're going to get going with it. Please make sure you silence your cell phones so we don't have any interruptions, and I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Brokaw, Commissioner Lenval, Commissioner Jolovich,
Here.
Commissioner Bell,
Here.
Commissioner Masterson,
Here.
Commissioner Roberts. All present and accounted for. We have a quorum. If members of the public wish to address the commission on any agenda item, please fill out a comment form that's located in the back of the room with the department staff that's helping. Stephanie Estelle from the Communications and Education Division in Cheyenne. If you are participating via Zoom, you should have submitted an advance comment form prior to the starting of this meeting. If you would still like to comment on an agenda item, please contact the host of the meeting. As we work through the agenda, the public will have the opportunity to address the commission. To ensure everyone has an opportunity to speak, and as a courtesy to others, please limit your time. Make sure as commissioners, when your mic shows red, your mic is hot. So keep an eye on that, please. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion to approve the commission meetings from the last meeting of September meeting.
I'd move to approve as presented.
Commissioner Brokaw moved.
Second.
Commissioner Bell seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. I'd like to introduce our new director, Angie Bruce. This will be her first official commissioner meeting, and we welcome her as our director.
Thank you, President Lodwell. Commissioners, department staff, public partners. It's a privilege to stand before you with my first director's update and my first commission meeting as director. So several staff updates I would first like to brief you on. First of all, I have named past Deputy Chief of Wildlife, Doug Brimmeyer, as the new Deputy Director in replacement of my past position. Doug is not here today. He's missing his first commission meeting. However, he had a pre-planned trip to Honduras with his family that he's enjoying. But Doug comes to us with over 30 years experience working with this department in the wildlife division with various positions throughout the state. So we're really excited to have him as part of the director's office team in his new role. Secondly, I would ask you guys to help me congratulate Wildlife Chief King, as this is his last commission meeting before retirement. Any words, Chief King? 27 years he gave to the wildlife of this state that we're truly grateful for, and wish him best of luck in his retirement. Another note, a face of the game and fish through our public information officer, Brianna Bell, will be moving on to another position. Life is taking her to Western Wyoming. And I'm not going to steal the Wildlife Fund's thunder, so I'll just leave it at that, and you'll hear more later in the day. On to other news. I'd like to take a minute to talk about the federal land management planning efforts. A few meetings ago, I spoke quite in depth about the sage-grouse plan, but where it is at today, the public final EIS has been released, and we are currently in the protest period and the governor's consistency review period. So what that means for us, a couple months ago, we were given a surprise with the plan. And what I mean by that, as cooperators, we're involved throughout the last 2 years of this planning process. But the surprise came to us was very concerning. It was another layer of protection on sagegrass for Wyoming in a specific area of the state. We often call this PHMA plus, Priority Habitat Management Area, or CORE. We have also categorized this as an ACEC in disguise. ACECs are areas of critical environmental concern. And this really came to a surprise and a concern for us and really jeopardized all the work we have done to date. That is one thing we will be expressing in our protest period back to the federal government. Because of that action, we were successful in getting 7 out of the 11 sagegrass states to sign on to a governor's letter back to the federal agencies with our concern over this process and how the surprise was thrown on us. The other concerns that are top of the list with this plan, there's a grazing issue that hasn't been resolved. And then again, adaptive management, where you've heard me talk before. Really this concern over state management of the bird, our population data versus federal jurisdiction. So again, we'll be expressing that in the next 30 days back to the federal government with the hope that I'm getting asked a lot if we can salvage the plan, the 2 years we spent working on it. I'm not sure what the answer is to that yet. Possibly. I think we can back up, fix some of the EIS, and then go forward with a record of decision for Wyoming that reflects and aligns with the executive order. Some things are not in that final EIS, and they have to be included in order to choose them for the decision. And so we really need to evaluate to make sure that things are in there in order for the decision to align. The next one I want to briefly talk about is the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan Amendment. The department did enter into the protest period with a formal letter on this plan, and I get lots of questions. This plan is very protective for wildlife, so why would the department enter into protest? We do agree that protections are needed for wildlife in this area of the state. Very critical areas for wildlife. It's about how the protections were put in the plan. They used ACECs again to put a lot of areas under protections. The policies that have come out in the last 2 to 3 years regarding ACECs and how they are used have us extremely concerned about that tool. We think there could have been protections for wildlife in a different way than an ACEC. So that was our primary purpose of our protest. In addition, one of those ACECs was put in place to manage the elk herd in a location. Again, it's that jurisdictional issue. Who manages elk? The federal government or the state of Wyoming. So again, we documented that in a formal protest back to the BLM. Next, let's switch gears to a very positive federal collaboration with the Big Game Habitat Pilot Program. It continues to build momentum, lots of exciting things happening. I'll defer to Chris McBarnes with the Wildlife Fund to talk about some of those funding things. However, I do just want to highlight the first 3 years of this program, $34 million has been brought into the state extra for private landowners. That's pretty incredible. On top of that, we've got a couple partners here today that helped with a federal RCPP grant. That stands for Regional Conservation Partnership Program. The Jackson Hole Land Trust and the Stock Growers Land Trust put in for extra money and they were awarded. They were awarded $25 million, which they will match with another $25 million. That will bring $50 million for private landowners into this state for conservation easements. So again, the momentum's growing, super exciting stuff. Can't wait to see where this goes in the future. Next, I'd like to touch on the year of wildfires in the state of Wyoming. a total of 1,918 fires, with a total of almost 900,000 acres. The difference with these fires is 70%, around 600,000 acres, were on non-federal land. Definitely, these fires were on a lot of our minds throughout the summer and this fall. Deputy Chief of Wildlife Justin Benefit's going to give you some more details on those fires and some of our actions tomorrow. But I did want to highlight the Sheridan region and everything they went through with these fires. That region really stepped up and acted like a team really well to respond in any way they can to both hunters, landowners, but also to the community. In addition, the Governor Gordon joined me to attend a landowner meeting early November up there in Sheridan. And it was really evident that the landowners had a lot of respect and rapport for the local staff, and that was really good to see. Next, I'd like to brief you on kind of some of the outcomes of the legislative interim session, specifically our work with Travel, Rec, and Wildlife Interim Committee. Out of that, we have approximately 6 bills we will be looking at for the session. There's other bills that are coming out of other legislative committee that we have our eyes on, but these are the ones that have the most potential impact to the department. First of all, there's the bill to exempt the department from property taxes on our wildlife management facilities. So this would be our primary headquarters, Cheyenne headquarters, our regional offices, those buildings. It would not include our lands, our WHMAs, and most likely not our residents either. That bill did pass through committee and we should see it this session. The next one is the animal abuse for predatory animals bill related to Title VI. If you guys recall, this is a result of the Daniel Wolf incident, and TRW appointed a predator working group to specifically work on this topic. The bill that came out of that working group dealt with Title VI to increase the fines for those who failed to, with a reasonable effort, to kill a predator animal. The game wardens were also added to that Title VI because currently they are not allowed to enforce this piece of it, and then therefore they would be able to operate within Title VI as well. The next one we've talked about before too is the hunting license application fee. This is to give you guys, the commission, the ability to raise application fees for residents and non-residents. Residents from $5 up to $20, and then for non-resident 15 up to 75. The issue with this bill is 2 meetings ago it was amended, and that amendment changed it. So as you currently apply for several licenses at a time, you pay for that application fee each time with each license. This amendment changed that. So if you were going in and doing several at once, you would pay for one application fee instead of several. What that does is this turned it into a revenue generating bill into a revenue decrease bill. Currently, we bring about $3 million into your budget through application fees, and this would decrease it to $2 million. So we're going to be aggressively having lots of conversation during the legislative session regarding this bill and seeing if we can get it amended back to where it's a revenue generating bill for us. The next one, we've talked about this ever since I've been here, but we continue to talk about fishing outfitters and guides. So the bill that TRW passed out of committee gives the commission the authority to regulate outfitters and guides if you so choose to. It sets in there a public process and the ability to make rules and regs around that. That one did go through TRW, and we should see that as well during the session. The other two we've talked about numerous times have come back from last year. The one I call the deer split bill, splitting the species from mule deer and whitetail into 2 separate license allocations. And last but not least, the preference points to bonus point bill that we've discussed a lot. And as you guys know, that was a result of the Wildlife Task Force. That one was passed through committee as well this year and will be going to full session. Next, I'd like to touch on employee compensation. You guys had a presentation by our HR director last commission meeting, but I'm pleased to say that the state is moving forward on governor's third tier addressing employee compensation that was passed through the legislative session last year. We don't have all the details yet, but I'll tell you what we know. This bill is really to address the employee compression issue, where you have employees who've been working with the state a long time and employees who've been working just a few years having a very similar salary. So this is to address those who have worked with the state a long time and to compensate them for that. It is predicted that 60% of state employees will see a benefit from this formula. And the average being around a 3% increase. I'm just giving you a heads up because as we work out the details and understand what that means for the department, we'll be coming back to you at the next commission meeting with a budget ask in order to accommodate that. In addition, you guys have asked us to review employee compensation as a whole for the department. So we'll take this change into consideration and then relook at where we're going with that as well. Next, I'd like to briefly touch on the unfortunate incident of Grizzly Bear 399 and the roadway accident that killed her. As you guys know, there's been a lot of publicity on this bear, but what you might not know is the communication that happened behind the scenes between, Bree working with the PIO of Fish and Wildlife Service, me working with the regional director, our large carnivore section working hands-on with the people in the field. There was excellent communication between the Fish and Wildlife Service and the department. Some of that doesn't always get reflected in the media and what you're seeing, but it was really great to see everyone come together, make sure we had the facts correct, and could communicate them in a way that made sense for the public. So I just like to acknowledge the Fish and Wildlife Service for their cooperation during that effort. And then lastly, but not least, Wyoming will host our executive leadership meeting for WAFWA in December this year. WAFWA is the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. For those who are not familiar, I like to talk about this is our professional organization where leadership across the West comes together to share knowledge and to work on initiatives together. We will host it in Jackson in early December. I believe a couple of you guys will be attending as well. And we'll be really focusing on a few things this year. One of them is to look at some different drone and weapon technology. As you guys know, it's a constant regulation issue about what the states are going to allow or not allow. So that will be a highlight. In addition, we are bringing in, I think this is the first time it's ever happened, but we're bringing in every state conservationist for NRCS, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, to really focus on how do we do more things together of state and USDA, similar to our big game habitat pilot program. That program has expanded to 4 other states. Plus, we have a USDA MOU with WAFWA now that focuses on how do we work together more closely when it comes to private lands in the grassland, sagebrush, and migration fields. And so really we're going to spend over a day talking with those state conservationists about how we can work more closely together. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. President, I have a couple of
Commissioner Roberts.
Director, is two specific things. Could you address how we're moving along on the Sublette antelope migration corridor and also where we're at on the trapping reform?
Mr. President, Commissioner, yes. So sublet antelope migration corridor. I believe it was back in the April commission meeting that you guys identified that formally and asked the department to proceed forward with the executive order timeline on how to designate that corridor. And so in response to that, our staff have been actively putting together a biological and risk assessment. So this is a huge document talking about what those threats are to that corridor. It is actually, Chief of Wildlife Justin Benefit sent that to me the other day. So it is starting to get in a very good draft form. Once it has gone through the director's office, that will start a public review process of that. Meeting with folks to say, this is what we think the threats are. Did we get it right? So once that document has gone through the public process, we make amendments, we make edits, we'll be bringing that back to you guys. I believe the timeline is a March commission meeting, if I have that right. Justin's nodding, so. Trapping reform. Definitely that's an issue that we continue to face. Where we are at right now, Supervisor Jason Hunter gave you guys a presentation. I believe it was the April committee meeting, and talked about that past committee work, talked about the history, where we are with that. And when we took this to a legislative action before, the two asks, which were setbacks for traps and mandatory trap education, did not go through a committee, interim committee, TRW legislative process. But we are anticipating that we will see new bills this year go straight to session, and therefore we'll testify on those, provide the background, and the commission's recommendation in the past regarding those.
Commissioner Brokaw?
Commissioner President, yes, question for Angie. Back to legislative interim bills that are coming out. Have some concern with several of those that you mentioned. I would like to remind my fellow commissioners, as I will be gone at that time, that the commission has a more unique opportunity to lobby more so than the department. And I would really encourage the commission to make time and take time to work with our young, fresh legislatures and not let some of these get out of hand, because they're concerning. In light of our budget forecasting, the license application fee amendment reversal, that is so contradictory to what we've been working on for the last 5 years. The tax exempt bill, that's concerning. We've worked hard on that to get that done. Yeah, concerning. I'll get an opportunity to come though as a citizen and really tell them what I think.
President, could I follow up with that?
Yes, you can.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Brokaw. Yeah, we will be doing our best to clarify the impacts to the department. As a state agency, we are part of the executive branch and not allowed to lobby for state legislation. However, we testify and explain what those impacts are. And I would welcome anytime your involvement. Commissioner Masterson, it was so great to have you at the last TRW meeting. Very helpful. And the legislators like to see that as well. So any involvement would be welcome, but I would also encourage the public and partners in the room to consider being involved to a greater degree as well in the future. So thank you.
Commissioner Master?
Mr. President, thank you. Director, just to tie into your last comment, could we be provided with the fiscal note that the department prepares regarding the tax bill, as well as the license bill? And that might help us get some information and be able to have some talking points for our legislators.
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, absolutely. And just for the public in the room too, is when we first do a fiscal note for the legislature, which me and Meredith were talking earlier, I think we got a dozen this week already. They're coming in and coming in rapidly. Those are confidential. However, we do actively put together what we call a legislative information sheet. So we put all of our talking points, fiscal analysis in one package. And I bring that up because not only will we provide them to you, we will provide them to any of the public and partners that ask as well. So it is a way to just get that full view of the issue. And I can also provide you with some of that, especially it becomes open to the public when we testify and already disclose that information too.
Thank you. A couple more, if I may, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And I think that'll serve the purpose. You mentioned the $50 million available for conservation easements, which is spectacular. Who administers those funds? Who decides where they go and what is acquired?
So it is a USDA program by NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service. However, it was the Greater Yellowstone, the Jackson Hole Natural Resource Trust, along with the Stock Growers Natural Resource Trust. Jessica Crowder is in the audience today, who will actually implement that on the ground. Yep.
Thank you. Finally, about the sage grouse and the RMP for Rock Springs. Say hypothetically, there was a change in federal administrations, just hypothetically, with one that might have a somewhat different view than the ones that than the one that produced the current plans. I'm wondering about timing specifically. Given a hypothetical new administration could come in January, will those become effective before that occurs, or are these protest and objection periods, will they still be open by that time?
Good question, President, Commissioner Masterson. The Rock Springs RMP, I believe, has a chance for the decision to come out before the change in administration. And the sage-grouse one probably isn't physically possible to do that because of the timing and where we are with the state consistency review and the protest period. With that, what does that mean for us? I am optimistic that the incoming administration is going to view the word state cooperator much differently than the current administration did. As you know, and you've heard me testify before, it is mandatory through the NEPA process to involve local, county, and state government in the cooperating process. But really that term is defined by whatever leadership we have in charge. We had a lot of meetings under this administration. However, our voice did not carry much weight. And so we're hoping that we can start with the new administration on a new ground and really have some influence in those final documents. If the decision is to go forward and conclude those, rather than starting over or backing up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other comments? Thank you very much. It was a very intense briefing and you did very well. And again, welcome as the director.
Thank you.
Next to be Deputy Director Will Tanger. Commission meeting location change.
Good morning, Mr. President, Director Bruce, members of the commission. Yes, next on your agenda is seeking your approval to make some changes to our September 2025 meeting, which right now is in Laramie. We're asking to move it to Lander, which would then change the November 2025 meeting from Lander to Laramie. I stand for any questions as to the why? If you so choose.
Yes, Mr. President, why?
I think Commissioner Robertson.
Mr. President, Commissioner Roberts. The why is the Lander September meeting. If you choose to vote on that, there are some talks of bighorn sheep issues during that time frame that would probably be a benefit to have your presence there. And then the Laramie November meeting, if you choose to vote that way, also coincides with the governor's business forum. And Commissioner Bell could probably help you with that, Commissioner Roberts, if needed.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President, is the business forum in Laramie this year?
Mr. President.
Yeah.
Commissioner Masterson, yes. It's in Laramie,
Thank you.
actually today. It's finishing up today, so it would be helpful if it was on this, in the same location.
Mr. President, Commissioner Roberts, the dates have not changed, just the locations.
Mr. President, I would make the motion to approve the change in location for the September meeting from Laramie to Lander and the November meeting from Lander to Laramie, 2025.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to move the meeting from one place to another and from one other place to another. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Don't see Josh. Next is the Muley Fanatics, Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust. Josh and Marisa, Jessica.
President Ledley,
Got-
Director Bruce, Marissa Taylor, with the Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust was not able to be here instead. Would like to have the next director, Jessica Crowder. There we go. I'll repeat that if you would like me to. President Ladwig, Director Bruce, members of the commission, joining me today from the Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust, Jessica Crowder. Marissa Taylor was not able to make this today, but we are excited to be before you this morning. As you recall, we had an opportunity to visit with you in Pinedale at the April commission meeting to throw an idea out there that we had been working on prior to that with Director Nesvik. We had just at that time wanted to use the opportunity to showcase the idea, knowing that there was a lot of work to be done and to go back to the drawing board and to work out the details of what this would look like. You have this available to you in your packet. It's also available on the screen. And we would like to take this opportunity to talk about some of the details associated with this offering. But I would like to give Jessica Crowder an opportunity to welcome you as well.
Thank you, Mr. President, Director Bruce, members of the commission, and Josh. It's an honor to be here today. We're really excited to bring this opportunity back in front of you after we've spent several months working on it. I do also want to recognize a member of our board of directors, Diana Berger, is here with us today. You can wave. So she'll be here for the morning as well with us. So if you have questions, please let us know. I think one of the things that I'd like to express regarding the offerings that we'll provide more details on is that this is really the ultimate collaboration for the benefit of conservation, wildlife management, and agricultural conservation as well. And the collaboration that we have between Muley Fanatics, our organization, the Land Trust, the Game and Fish Department, and you all as commissioners, and the private landowners that have offered to provide access for hunting really does showcase how many different partners can come together to benefit different organizations that are working towards conservation and to benefit wildlife management and to benefit those landowners themselves. So we're excited about these opportunities. We're excited to present this to you. And we really are grateful that all of you are interested in hearing more about this. And we're grateful really to the private landowners that have decided to pilot this idea with us. With that, I'll turn it back over to Josh.
Thank you, Jessica, and members of the commission. If you recall, when we visited about this in April in Pinedale earlier this year, this was just an idea. And we thought it was a great idea, but it was going to take some work and it was going to take some great collaboration with what is truly the impetus of this is to be able to work with these incredible private landowners that have incredible wild places and wild things within their landscapes, and to create an opportunity that would truly be a dream come true for just a couple. And what I mean by that is that this idea only would be able to come to fruition with the support of the commission and the allocation of 2 commissioner licenses. These 2 landscapes is represented here today, one with the Wagon Hound and then the other with the USM Ranch. The effort behind the scenes with the efforts that we have put forth since April to be able to bring these to you today has involved a lot of great conversation and a lot of support. And we're excited to be able to at least give you the opportunity to see the debut of what this could look like, still pending the allocation of 2 commissioner licenses. The first one we would like to talk about would be with the Wagon Hound Land and Livestock Company. This, of course, in Commerce County in Area 7. This opportunity would be an item that would be auctioned off as a live auction item at Mule Deer Days coming up in March, which is March 21st through the 23rd. This would actually take place on Saturday, March 22nd. We had asked Wagon Hound what their best endorsement would be, whether this be a raffle or a live auction item. And they directed us very sternly that they wanted this to be a live auction item. They also thought that they could bring bidders to the table that would really see the value of what this offering is. And unlike other commissioner license allocations, this one would be a package deal. Of course, the commissioner license guarantees the certainty of the winner to be able to execute this opportunity when won. This would include their time with Wagon Hound and their guides, but it would be a package deal that would be all inclusive to this opportunity. We feel very strongly that their recommendation as a live auction item. Certainly, I think we're mindful of the fact that not everybody can participate and play at that level. Not everybody has the disposable income to be able to participate in this, and we recognize that. But there are folks that do, and we do think that this is an opportunity that would have great value by those that do. The other one that we'll talk about with the USM Ranch, this is quite different in that this one would be a raffle. And this one, we would be selling 500 tickets at $100 to generate $50,000. And I think that's where I would like to stop. I think it's very important that we remember when we talked to you in April why we were doing this and the value and the benefit of what this creates. Certainly the Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust and their mission with our wide open spaces and our conservation easements. That's something as an organization for mule deer, recognizing the value of those landscapes, we were easily aligned to want to be involved with this. And maybe it would be best served for Jessica to talk to you specifically about their need and more as a reminder from what we presented in April, because I do think there's great merit in that.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners, Director Bruce. I think you've already heard from Angie about the amazing partnership opportunity we have with the Regional Conservation Partnership Program in Western Wyoming. I think that points to the great and immense interest that landowners have, private landowners have in conserving their private lands. Our mission is focused on conserving agricultural lands and working lands, which of course provide immense wildlife habitat, open spaces, so many public benefits that we all enjoy. And this opportunity for partnership with muley fanatics, with these landowners who really do work on keeping habitat available for wildlife and putting this together in a package really does pull together all of the pieces of our mission. And working with these entities to be able to showcase what landowners can do in this way is also very exciting. I think one thing I'd like to impress upon you is that I don't think, and I don't think any land trust working on conservation easements in the state of Wyoming, I don't think any of us see a lessening in the interest in conservation easements. Landowners are very interested in making sure that lands remain open and available for agriculture, available for wildlife, available for, you know, just driving down the road and seeing these wide open spaces. Landowners are increasingly interested in that legacy and being a part of that legacy. Our staff is very small, but we do work very hard to meet the needs of landowners and try to help them reach their goals for conservation, for agriculture, you know, and really for their heritage and into the future. And conservation easements are a great way to do that. And so these opportunities, this partnership with all of these entities really does build on what is already happening within our organization. And you know, our hope is that we're able to just put more towards serving those landowners, because that's really what we do, is provide a service to landowners who are interested in conservation easements.
Yeah, and I think it's obvious, it probably goes without saying, but our support of conservation easements and being able to keep intact lands intact, I think it's bigger than just the wide open wild things and wild places of what those lands afford. I think that also plays very tightly, closely knitted to our heritage in Wyoming and what those working lands and those just wild lands provide to those that call Wyoming home. So the allocation of the funds, I think, is very important. I think the transparency of what this effort is something that we want to be able to promote. Certainly the support of the land trust and their effort. 70% of the revenue would be generated to go back to the Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust. And then the 30% that would be allocated to Muley Fanatic Foundation, 100% of those funds would be earmarked to be used towards a conservation easement in the Cowboy State. Not necessarily with these landowners, but supporting what the mission is with the Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust. So before we move on to the USM Ranch and that offering, which I will say is just, I mean, Wagon Hound is certainly got a reputation that goes without saying, but we're very excited as well, equally as excited with the USM Ranch that has not allowed this type of access or operation on this landscape. But at this point, may I stand for any questions that might be here at this time?
Any questions?
All right, hearing none, if we could turn the slide to the USM Ranch, please. A little bit about this landscape. This is in Goshen County. Included in the access of what this offering is 30,000 acres. The opportunity will include 5 consecutive days for one hunter. This will be for an elk license, bow or rifle. And this is Hunt Area 3. And I'm trying to recall, I believe the district that is serviced by this license would either be Commissioner Jolovich or maybe even a part of Commissioner Brokaw. It's all you, sir. Okay. And then of course the other one, Commissioner Masterson, I believe would be within your district. Is that correct? Okay. Any questions on either of these?
Mr. President, I don't feel any pressure at all, just so you know, no pressure.
Any other questions, comments? It sounds like you got a win-win situation going, and that's what's so fantastic about it, is working together and working for the conservation of things in Wyoming. That's super.
Yeah, Mr. President, I would just like to reiterate what Jessica's opening comments were, that the collaboration is truly how conservation in the 21st century works. And when you look at all the moving parts that were able to come together to bring this to fruition, to have this idea to put before you, it's been nothing short of profound. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Osterlin? Welcome.
Morning, President Ladwick, Commissioners, Director Bruce. I'm here today to give you another update on the Spies Cool Water and Warm Water Facility Project. As I mentioned last time, we are continuing on working with McMillan Engineering. In the engineering phase of the project, we're at 25% design right now. Some of the things they're looking at in this phase at 25% are the lighting in different rooms, type of fish feeders for each species, oxygen equipment needs for each room, electrical access points, types of tanks used in each rooms, plumbing, French drain work, types of grading throughout the building, and the HVAC system. So getting down into the water, I would say weeds, but I don't think that'd be appropriate in this situation. So next up would be 50% design, and I just saw email communication from McMillan, setting up a meeting to look at 50% design at the end of January, early February. That's coming up, and what we'll see, what's important about 50% design is that's where we start to see what the cost estimates are really going to be. And recently, last week, a lot of fish staff, or some of the fish staff, were in a Colorado River Fish and Wildlife Council meeting. And some of the states involved, like Colorado, Utah, also have projects that are going on. And I bring that up because their projects are coming in over budget. So there is, that probability in this project as well. You might remember we had a feasibility study that we had done for the project a couple of years ago. And with a lot of these things, we got to base the project cost on the estimates we receive, to the best of our knowledge. And then when you have the project come in several years later, you get higher costs. And as we all have seen in lots of projects we've had within the agency where things are just expensive. So I don't want to give you a figure right now because I know that we'll have a better idea where we're at. I can say that our crews are really looking at trying to keep costs down to a minimum. But I can tell you it's probably not going to be in the thousands. It'll probably be in the millions, is my estimate. So. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Mr. President, I have a question for Chief Osterlin.
Commissioner
Alan,
Brokaw.
so we allocated money for engineering, 2.5 million, I think. We're at 0.25% design. Do those engineers give design work proportionate to that overall? So have they gone through 25% of our original money to get here? Or is it heavy upfront in engineering? Or is it heavy on the backside? Like we get to 50%, well, we have spent 50% of our budget. Any feel on that?
President Ladwick, Commissioner Brokaw. Not really. One thing I do know with the 25% design, that is based on, they're building the ramp. So they're looking at different things, and some of the things that I mentioned last time and this time are part of that 25% design. And when you get to 50, they have more information on what we need, how we want to do it. At 50%, then they can give us a better cost estimate. 75%, then they're done. Whether, as far as the funding concerned in there, I couldn't answer that, but I think that's the way the engineering estimates at 25, 50, 75 are based on those. Just looking at, there's a lot of moving parts in these systems. So they take it at chunks.
Yeah. Yeah, I was hopeful and working with engineers in other spheres of my life. I was just hopeful that maybe we allocated 2.5 million for engineering, but they only needed 1.5 of it. But probably not the forecast.
Yeah, President Ladwick, Commissioner Brokaw, another part of that 2.5 million approximately is the construction oversight of that too. So that's built into the engineering cost. That's both together.
So then based on the process that you hear other bids are coming in, other engineering is coming in, is there anything that the department can subtract from this or influence pulling back a little bit to stay within budget? Or if they can't stay within budget, any idea where the money might be coming from?
Yeah, good questions, President Ladwick. I'll address the part of what we can cut first. So when we started out, we had things in there in the project that were, when I told them to go out there, I said, look at what would be best. And part of that had a visitor center in there because it's kind of a iconic project, only one we've got involving cool warm water species. We've cut that out already. We've cut out areas where we thought we could use gravel instead of concrete. The culture section guys, they said they can purchase the equipment at a better rate than going through subcontractors. So they're already looking at ways that they can cut. In my mind, we could cut things by reducing the number of species we're raising, like just going with walleye. But in my mind, that defeats the purpose of the whole program. We still be importing other species into the state that anglers desire. And by removing one risk and keeping their other ones, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And we're probably, as I mentioned before, we're probably going to be out of walleye production or importation in one particular, where we get all our walleye from, Garrison Federal Hatchery, if zebra mussels continue to work up the Missouri Basin like they have been in a short period of time. So that was the purpose of the project, was trying to get out ahead of it and be proactive instead of reactive and trying to figure out how we're going to provide walleye to our angling public. And as far as other options as funding, we have been looking at other options. When we were doing we got the initial okay from the commission to go out and look for different funding sources. We had some of our congressional delegation folks reach out to us and say, what can we do? We'll look for you. Potential other funding sources. Haven't came up with any to date. So we continue to look for different ways that we might be able to get some funding to take up that difference, but we haven't come up with anything concrete yet.
Because this is being done somewhat in the name of AIS protection, we understand that. How would the involvement of other entities that might be concerned about AIS, has that been looked at?
President Ladwick, as far as contributing to the project, we have not reached out to anybody directly for that yet.
Any other comments?
Well,
Commissioner
Mr.
Brokaw?
President, met a gentleman here today, I think his name was Ian with Crown Unlimited. Hey, you want to partner on a project? I think good things to be thinking about. I appreciate the department. Alan, you're already looking for diverse funding sources. I think that will probably help bring it all to fruition. But at 25% design, it's kind of like hurry up and wait until we get them to put a price tag on something, isn't it?
President Ladwick, Commissioner Brokaw, yeah, it is. But I wanted to get this out in front of you now so you can be ready for if it does come, which
Sure.
I think it probably will. And we're looking at a few months and then we should have a good idea. So we're getting close.
Mm-hmm.
And the project should run, I'll mention this timeline again. Engineering will be done probably late spring, early summer. It's a recommendation from the engineering company to do bids late in 25, late summer, early fall. Let the construction season wind down a little bit, get more interest, and then construction would start in 2026
Sorry, Mr. President. So from our Jackson housing experience, they give us a number. We already know if we're 2 years out from construction, we need to have a contingency on top of that of another quarter, $500,000. So just to remind the commission of that, that they just keep growing the farther you put that construction date down the trail. I understand the logistics of the seasonal work, but just a reminder.
Yeah, President Ladwick, Commissioner Brokaw, that's exactly right. And then engineer, when they're done with their design recommendations, they'll have a contingency built in there. Both directions, which we know it usually doesn't go the other way now. It goes high.
Any other comments? Thank you.
Thanks.
Deputy Chief Bibby. How is the employee housing looking in Jackson, Wyoming?
President Ladwick, Director Bruce, I am happy to report that and are continuing to move in this week. So we've worked really hard over the last 3 weeks, particularly Chief Engineer Lauren Wooden, to get all the finishing details done. We did just receive our sewer connection agreement on October 24th. So it's been a little bit of a mad dash to try to get all of our utilities connected, our asphalt laid, and all the fun details and things that come along with the end of a project. But we are very near substantial completion for the interiors of the dwellings. They're going to continue to work on the exterior for the next few weeks, just on things here and there that need to be accomplished that we've identified, including punch list work. We've had our own engineer and our design team go through and make sure that, you know, everything that we need to get done gets done, all the little fixes. We're expecting final numbers here in the next few weeks, but we are under budget. We anticipate, or at least I'm anticipating, to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 under budget. We do need to finalize a few things that could cost us some additional money through the contingency process, bolstering some asphalt areas and things like that. But I expect to have final numbers for you potentially in January with what would be my final update on this project. But we are moving in or moved in and are almost there. So with that, I was up there a couple of weeks ago doing my own walkthrough on everything and wanted to provide you some of the pictures that I was able to take. If I can get this. There we go. So this is a picture of the housing area, basically from the highway perspective. You can see all the houses in the backdrop of the South Park WHMA. The AOEC housing is this first house here on the right. This is from the entrance to the housing area, basically the main driveway that goes through and provides access to all the houses along the way, the seasonal unit being on the left, and then the first home for our full-time employees on the right and heading down. There we go. This is unit number 1. As you can see, they've poured all the asphalt. They're working on the finishing touches for the landscaping. While I was there, we had a little bit of light snow in the morning, so things were a little bit wet, but they're working pretty hard to clean up the interiors of the homes, get those ready for the incoming employees, and minor electrical issues and things like that. This is the unit number 2. So you can see that each individual house as we go along kind of changes the configuration of the garage so that there's a little bit of, diversity throughout the housing. Unit number 3. Number 4. Number 5. And number 6, excuse me. That's the last house on the end right now, for the full-time employees. And then this is the AWAC housing unit. So as you can see, this was a couple of weeks ago. Things have obviously been pretty cleaned up since then. But all heated, utilities going at this point. Sewer connection looks good. Everything's been tested, water. So to this point, we're pretty happy with the end result. The houses are a quality level that we're happy with. Barring the hiccups that we've had here at the end of the job, like any project we've worked on, we're very happy with the end result. We'll continue to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, but we are basically there. So your Jackson housing project is nearly complete. And with that, I take any questions.
Questions? So those of us that are gonna go to Jackson for WAF in early December, do we get a tour?
Mr. President, absolutely. Absolutely. We're probably going to have, several tours with, as we have commissioners come through there. If we have any meetings up there, I'm sure people want to see those. We can coordinate that with the folks in the region, and you guys can go get a good walkthrough and take a look at, at least some of the exteriors of the homes, and certainly the seasonal unit.
Appreciate that. And it's good to hear that it's possibly gonna be under budget. That's fantastic news. So, it looks super. Anything else? Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chief Weber?
Mr. President, members of the commission, and Director Bruce. This morning, I have just a couple of property rights items for discussion. I want to start off with a 50-year exchange of use agreement extension for access to the Thornton Williams WHMA in Albany County. So just for reference, so everybody knows where this is located, this is the Thornton Williams WHMA is in red on this map, located between Wheatland and Laramie on Highway 34, and it's located directly north of the Sabile Research Unit. So the Thornton Williams exchange of use agreement has been in place since 1975 for access to the WHMA. We're asking for an additional 50 years on top of that. The current agreement expires in April of 2025. Access to the Christnick family property in exchange for grazing. So they have 3 separate parcels that they can graze throughout the year over the course of this exchange of use agreement. And like I said, it's a 50-year term. Requires adaptive management of rangeland through yearly meetings between the parties. So the Christnick Ranch will be meeting with representatives from the Laramie region to determine which areas to graze each year. So they won't be grazing all 3 tracks each year. They'll just pick which area makes the most sense to graze that year, just to ensure there's plenty of forage out there for the landowners or for the wildlife. And there's no cost to either party. So just like the last 50 years, there'll be the same terms this time with no compensation between the 2 sides. And I would like to mention too that the Christnick family has been good to work with over the last 50 years. And so that's why we were interested in it turned into the agreement another 50 years. Here's a map that shows the Thornton Williams WHMA. It's outlined in red on this map. Everything in yellow on this map is owned by the BLM. Everything in blue is state land. And Johnson Creek Reservoir is located, I don't think this is, it is working right there in the middle of the state land parcel. So it has some fishing access for the public out there too. The Sabila Research Unit is dark red on this map down here across the highway. So everybody can see where that's at. And the 3 parcels that we'll be exchanging, and allowing grazing on the unit are in the area that are owned by the commission. Is this piece right here, 320 acres, 58 acres right here, and another 120 acres over here. So this is just kind of blown in so you can see the location that the Christniks are exchanging use for. So the area highlighted in lime green is owned by the Christnik family. The access road that goes up to off of Highway 34 up to the unit is right here. We have to cross their property right in this location. And on the south side of the highway, there's several acres that are fenced into the Sabila Research Unit with the high wildlife fencing currently. So we don't have to remove that fence and move it out back onto our line. It makes most sense just to continue with this agreement the way it's currently working out, and as it's working out good. And this is the only location to access the unit, the Thorne Williams WHMA, based on the terrain is very mountainous in this area. So there's really no other location to access the area. So we'd like to move forward with this exchange of use agreement and sign it this spring. At this time, the department recommends the commission vote to approve the 50-year extension to the agreement for access to the Thorne Williams WHMA in exchange for grazing by the Christnik family. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Brokaw.
Thank you, Commissioner President. Could you go back one slide? How far does this access road go into that country, and who owns that part?
This piece right here is owned by Game and Fish. This road actually runs all the way out here. We took it all the way out in this area.
So if we own that, then we don't have another access agreement above and beyond the Christnik family.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I move to accept the 50-year agreement as the terms outlined by the department.
Second.
Commissioner Bell, seconded. Been moved and seconded to approve the 50-year access agreement for access. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Okay, thank you. And the item I have here is just an update on a fishing area that we had approved at the July of 2023 commission meeting. I'll show a map here that shows the location of it. This is the Glen Rock Danaher fishing access area. We had approved $175,000 for the fishing easements along this area and a boat launch and parking area out here. But kind of the way this whole project played out was we met with the landowners, worked out the terms of the agreement. Everything seemed good to go. We had the agreement went to their attorneys, and we had this approved by the commission in the meantime there. And in talking to their attorneys, there were some terms of the agreement the attorneys did not like. They want us to change some of the standard clauses we have in our agreements, and our AG's office did not approve of those. So we worked on it for a full year. It was from July of 23 through July of this last year. Tried to work this out. Unfortunately, we never came to terms on it, and the Danaher family has decided not to proceed with it. So it's unfortunate for the public because it would have been a great project for fishing out here. But we are working with another landowner in this area for a boat launch and parking area. We think it's going to work out great, and we'll bring it to a future commission meeting for approval. So there's really no action needed by the commission at this time, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware of, since the money was approved, I've let the fiscal division know that to release that back, those conservation stamp easement funds back to the fund that we could use for another project. So if there's any questions, I can answer those too.
Any questions, comments?
Well, I guess, and I remember, I guess I was I thought it was already wrapped up and we had it all ready to go when we appropriated the money.
Yes, Mr. President, Commissioner Roberts, we thought it was good to go too, and we've kind of changed the way we do things now after this one, because, I mean, we met with all 3 landowners. They were good with everything was going on with it. But in working through those clauses and everything else, now we do our best to have those agreements either signed or completely approved by their attorney before it comes to commission. So we don't have this situation in the future.
Yeah, it's really too bad something couldn't be finalized on it. I think it was gonna be a good deal for those folks in that area, and some things work out, I guess. So
Yep.
Appreciate the information. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we'll take a 10-minute break. Start back up at 10:30. Okay, we'll be back in session. Tony, are you ready? Joshua Moulton. Licensed section manager. Welcome.
Good morning, President Ladwig, Director Bruce, members of the commission. We've got 3 licensed selling agent appointments before us today. 2 transfers. One of those is Ace Hardware out of Rock Springs, and then Sweetwater Hardware out of Green River. And then we've got 1 new agent, a new Fast Stop location in Rock Springs. The department does recommend the commission to vote to approve the 2 transfers of Ace Hardware in Rock Springs and Sweetwater Hardware in Green River, and approve the new Fast Stop license in Rock Springs. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions on the new licenses?
No, I guess I don't. I already saw it approved the 2 transfers in Green River and Rock Springs. I was curious about the new applicant and how many applicants were in Rock Springs and if. Yeah, but I guess it's their choice to try, so. I guess, Mr. President, then if, with that, I would move the department's recommendation of the 2 Ace Hardware transfers and the new LSA at the Quick Stop, Gas Stop,
Fast Stop.
Fast Stop.
Stop.
Second.
Commissioner Brokaw made the motion. Is there a second?
Mr. President, I second that.
Okay. Commissioner Bell. Been made and seconded to approve the transfers and the new agent. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Next.
President Ladwig, Director Bruce, members of the commission, we have the conditional renewal of licensed selling agents. Wyoming statute dictates that licensed selling agents must have $1,000 in annual sales to remain an agent. We do bring them here before the November meeting. They still have November and December to meet those sales. So we do have 2 agents currently that haven't met those. And the department does recommend the commission to vote to conditionally renew these licensed selling agents and allow them to continue selling licenses on behalf of the department. We'll then revisit in January and see where they're at on sales. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Is there any questions on this? I have in front of me the conditional renewal order for those agents, and they're being directed to pay their bond by the 1st of December.
Mr. President, where are these agents located?
One of them is in the Jim Bridger Trading Post in Fort Bridger, and one of them is at the Bighorn Sheep Center in Du Bois.
Mr. President, I'm curious about something. You said, we're going to conditionally renew until January when the commission will revisit and see if they met the threshold. The order says that they'll be conditionally renewed for the calendar year 2025. Does that create any sort of problem that the order reads were, as I read it, through December 31st of 2025, but we're going to revisit it in January of 2025? Do you understand where I'm going?
Yep, President Ladwig, Commissioner Masterson. That is the conditional renewal, so it's based on the condition, of course, that they have met those sales in these next 2 months.
Okay.
So if they do not meet those sales, then they would not be allowed to continue through December 31, 2025.
Okay. I'm tracking. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Josh.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Brokaw?
Yeah, Mr. President, I was looking for the two conditional use ones. I'm not finding them on in my notebook. How close are those two agents, Fort Bridger and the other one, to reaching their $1,000? Is it?
Jim Bridger's very close. I imagine they will certainly meet that. Bighorn Sheep, they were quite a ways away. They were we pulled this report. They were at $334.50 in sales for the year. So.
Mr. President, and with discussion, the Bighorn Sheep Center there in Du Bois, correct?
Correct.
And being cognizant of, we own that building, so I don't know whether or not, or we owe what portion of that building? That whether that makes a difference, whether we can, we're providing a service with that, I mean, even if they didn't make that criteria, maybe we're, because of our ownership of it, we're providing a service. Just throw it out there.
I also like what it would like to add. I'm gonna be going to Jackson the first week of December, and I plan on stopping at the Bighorn Sheep Center and talking to the director and see what their thoughts are on this also, which would give us some insight, I think, or unless you've talked to them.
President Ladwig, no, I have not spoken with them. The license accounting supervisor from the section did give them a call. We've not been able to get a call back from them yet, but we have left them the messages to kind of let them know where they stand.
I'll stop in and visit with them and we'll know more then that way.
Renew all your. To buy a license until then.
Right. Any further discussion?
Mr. President, I would make the motion to conditionally renew these licensed selling agents and allow them to continue selling licenses on behalf of the department.
Ashley seconded it. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the conditional renewal of the licenses. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Corcolia. Website update. Welcome.
President Lagwig, members of the commission, good morning. I'm Nish Goikolea, the Communication and Education Chief, and I'm here to give you a brief update on our new website and the performance. So right now, I'm really happy to tell you that our new website is performing quite well and has improved immensely from our old site. So I'm going to give you a little bit of overview on the data. So since we launched in April, which has been about 6 months, we have had over 1 million users to our site. We've had 5.5 million page views, unique users on draw day, over 300,000, kind of what we expect. And then we know that our top pages, so looking at April till now, have been licensing page, the regulation page, draw results, and of course, hunt planner, which makes a lot of sense for this season. On average, people spend about 2 minutes and 16 seconds on our page. And 169 people are using our hunt planner. So in comparison, to give you the new versus the old, this is a snapshot from April 10th till October 25th of last year to this year. So that exact time frame. So with the new website, last year, April till October, we had 789,000 users. Now we're up to over 1 million. Last year, we had 564,000 traffic from organic searches. So those are people who are like Googling Wyoming Game and Fish Department, Wyoming regulations, Wyoming whatever, and getting to us. We're up to 723,000. And then this search page is our search page on our new website. It's down, which is good, because if people are using your search feature, it means that they can't find things. And so navigation has improved immensely, almost half better. which we're really excited about. And we kind of expected that, our old website just didn't have the navigation capabilities. The search feature didn't work really well. And while I will say that I don't think our search feature is perfect yet, we continue to refine it and it continues to get better. So the other big change for us, which we're really excited about, is the real-time data via APIs. So APIs are application programming interface, which what this is it takes our data within our Game and Fish databases and syncing it right into our website. So in the past, we had to do that manually and one at a time as it went. Now it does it automatically with our new website. So we have real-time data linking in to very specific pages such as Hunt Planner and other areas, public access pages, dates and deadlines. When we change something, it's automatic, which is really cool in our databases, and it links right to our new system. So there's no lapse for our public. Let's see here. This is a really interesting one. So visitors accessing our website are mostly doing that from their mobile devices. This is significantly up higher, 63% than in years past, versus 35% on desktops and tablets. We also have people we know are accessing our website through their smart TVs, which they couldn't do in the past. And our old website was not mobile friendly. So the fact that we made it mobile friendly, we made it accessible for smart TVs, and now people are using them, I think shows that if you build it, they'll come kind of thing. So we're really excited about that. Let me see if I can go. Another big feature that we worked on with this was our language translation feature. And so we can translate our website, I believe it's into 30 some languages. This was a component that we had failed in years past on audits for accessibility. And so with our new website, we were able to build that in. All of our accessibility, as you'll see in a future slide, is greatly improved. And so we're reaching more people, which gives us more opportunities to, have a greater audience impact. Quick response for emerging issues. So in years past, to create a new page on our old website was very time consuming. And now we can make a new page within hours. It's really quick. And an example I can give you is when we had our anthrax incident, we created an anthrax landing page within a couple hours. And not only was it, and then we linked it to all of our partners within the state, all the necessary information. It was such a good page. Google Analytics rewards pages if they are useful, accessible, well done in terms of content, and it also rates you in terms of what the audience is looking for based on their Google search. Our anthrax page was the #1 page if you Googled Wyoming anthrax to come up, which I think that's really cool. And then just the speed at which we're able to put information out is so much better and so much easier. The other page I want to talk about is our wildfire impacts in Wyoming. We had to put this page up, unfortunately, this year, and we had to do a lot of updating on this page as things emerged and were happening on the ground. But it was really easy to do. We were able to constantly, we had a banner on the homepage that linked to this page to really tell hunters what the impacts were going to be to their areas, and as things changed, closed, opened, etc. And we were able to do that in a really quick, fast time frame. So we know that was really well received by hunters, and just another great result of this new website. So from a security and IT perspective, our website hosting provider, which is Pantheon, helps us. We have a website hosting provider that helps us detect any kind of attacks, malware, anything like that in real time, 24 hours a day. In the past, we didn't have that. We hosted it ourselves. If something happened, we had to work it out, find out, get in there after the fact. But now we know 24/7. And so since we've launched in April, we've had 2 major attacks in the last 6 months. You'll remember the CrowdStrike one that hit Wyoming pretty hard. We've had some malware and then some other things, bot attacks. We have a 3-pronged support system for the website, which is really great because we support it. Portage, the people who built our website support it, and then also Pantheon, our web hosting site. So we feel really confident that our website and our information, our databases are extremely secure. Not to say that it hasn't like had some impacts or been down here or there for a minute or two, but in comparison to years past, it is extremely secure. And we continue to work with Portage and Pantheon to improve our system and get through some additional enhancements. We're learning more and more as we go. So serendipitously and unexpectedly, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, through a multi-state conservation grant administered with the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, AFWA, did a audit of all Fish and Wildlife Agencies websites in August, which we were really excited about because we weren't expecting it. And then we were like, all right, let's see how the new website compares. And we were even given our own specific state report on how we compared, which I thought was really cool. Their goal was to make sure that our digital dissemination of information for hunting and fishing is, how's it going? Are we recruiting, retaining? Are we giving people the information they want? And so this is how we rated overall. So we rated in performance 85%. Now, this is kind of low in our expectations because this happened in August during the CrowdStrike attack. So we actually think that they're going to do this again, this assessment on our performance, and we think it'll be higher. But the little inside circle is the national average, which is much lower than our page. The outside circle is ours. And so I think it's pretty good. Accessibility, that's what I was talking about. We're at 98%. We're above national average there as well. Best practices, which I have to say kudos to the department and the website committee and all of our IT folks who really, really worked hard to collect all the best practices and then really implement it. And I'm just really excited to say that we're 100% there. So that is really awesome. And then SEO, that is your search engine optimization. And so what that means that they look at our website and how if anybody in the public plug something into Google, Bing, or Yahoo, and they're looking for something, Wyoming hunt areas, Wyoming fishing, whatever they're looking for, they compare to see how our website performs and answers to the questions that are being answered. And so we did really well on that 85%. We know we can improve this number too. And so I think overall, really, really great, especially coming out of the gate from April to August. So we were really excited on this. The focus for the SEOs, which I'm going to show you in the next slide, is really on content. And so the next iteration of the website committee is going to have that emphasis. Over the last few years, we've been focusing on the build, on the structure, on the situation, framework, all of that. But now we're really going to be thoughtful and more strategic about content, placement, and the information that people are looking for. So just to give you an example, for the Google keyword rankings, if you type any of these in, we're number one. That means that our website comes up first for Wyoming hunting license, Wyoming hunting regulations, where to hunt, where to fish, fishing regulations, Wyoming fishing licenses. So that's really cool. And it's both on the desktop and the mobile one. So whether you're looking for multiple devices, it's coming up the way we want it to. So our current website works. So going back to this content, we're still doing a lot of cleanup in our search results area. That's everything from, and this is hard to see, and I'm sorry to see that. We did this. So if you go into our website, you go into our search button and you type hunter education, this is what comes up. And so initially we had 61 items pop up for hunter ed, and very few of them are really relevant. They were either like hunter ed trainings, hunter ed classes, hunter ed press releases, things like that. So we're going through and we're getting rid of these things so that the information that we know people are going to want to look for, because probably if you're a member of the public coming to look for hunter ed, you want to sign up for a class. So you want to know where the current classes are today, or you want to be an instructor. And so we're cleaning up these kinds of website searches, and we're going to be doing that across the whole department, all the divisions as we go forward. But just since we started this now, like I said, Hunter Ed used to pull up 61 results, and now it only pulls up 37. So much more focused, much more filtered. Here's another example, same thing, Hunter Ed classes. Before we had 22, now we're down to 20, and they're all the relevant ones. Before it used to pull up even like Hunter Ed in schools or Hunter Ed replacement cards, and those weren't necessarily what people were looking for because we can already see what people are searching for as well. We're tracking that. So to be able to better refine what we know people need from us and then clean up some of our old stuff in there. Our new website has a really great archiving feature, which our old website did not have. So we can archive stuff and put it in the backside and still be able to access it without having to delete it or just hoard our website up. So as I said, there's a new iteration of the website committee. There's some people who stayed on from across the department, and there's some people who came off, and we have some new folks on there. They're going to meet for the first time next week, and their focus is really going to be on reviewing all these pages, making sure everything's up to date, everything's correct, archiving the old content, and just making sure what people are looking for, they can find it readily and easily. And then they're going to have the discussion of what we need in the future and being able to build those new pages and that new content as it comes through. Thank you. Any questions?
Commissioner Masterson?
Me again, Mr. President. I'm going to go back into my favorite topic with you. From my experience, many people, as you point out, use their phones. And many people who use their phones don't want to use the browser on their phone. They want to use, say it with me, an app. I understand, obviously, the budget and our forecasts, but seeing the proficiency with which everyone uses phones and apps, I can't help but wonder if it wouldn't be something to at least investigate a little further. So I guess my question might be more for you, Mr. President, and that's whether the commission would consider directing or asking Nish to maybe investigate what the cost would be, what kind of a time frame it would be, just so we would have at least the data to know whether it's worth pursuing further.
Any other discussion on this matter? Commissioner Brokaw?
Yes, thanks, Mr. President. I believe Commissioner Masterson knows more about the mobile device than I. What are we doing? We've already got mobile
Thanks for asking that
application.
question.
Mr. President, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Nish. To get to the Game and Fish website, you would have to go to the browser app on your phone and go to the website that way. You can certainly access it, and it will function, but what I see is people don't do that. They want to go to the app. They want to see the Game and Fish app, hit the button,
They're
and
in.
it opens up and it takes you, and it's an easier, if you will, interface to work with. It's more custom tailored to your phone, and it just makes things easier. And hypothetically, if someone from Wyoming went to Colorado to visit family and wanted a hunting license or a fishing license for a couple days, they could actually pull up the app for the state to our south and actually apply while they're driving to the place where they want to fish. And within about 5 minutes, have a license in their hand. So I think,
Own app,
I'm sorry?
our own app.
Yes,
Okay, I'm tracking.
okay.
And
See,
Mr.
there's this is a phone. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, can I interject?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner Masterson, Nish as well. Definitely what you're talking about. I think all of us are aware, right? We probably have other state apps on our phones for when we want the ease of purchasing a hunting and fishing license and tracking it. I'll tell you shortly about an experience I had, the morning at 3 a.m. taking off to go hunting, and my son can't find his license tag, whatever he's looking for. And then I really wanted an app as well, looking for those paper copies and so forth. But to have everything in one place and the ease of purchasing, the department is definitely looking into that. We've been talking about that for several years. You did identify the restraints, which is the time and funding. Nish knows better than anyone how long it took to get this website up and going. And so we're looking into it. When I recently visited staff in the regions, it was the number one ask from our staff as well. So definitely will be a priority for us to look into that in the next year and what it will take to move it forward. So thank you for bringing that up.
I guess that answers the ask question. It's already been done.
And Mr. President, Director Bruce is spot on. And we actually have had this conversation in terms of an idea, kind of compiling all the ideas that if we had an app, what would we want it to do? And I can tell you that is an incredibly long list if we wanted one that did everything. And so I think that's where we have to figure out, to what extent we can do some things and whether or not we want to, build it in-house, start small, run it out, or if we wanted to look for an, off-the-shelf model, which would be really, really expensive. And we're seeing a lot more of these apps coming with a subscription requirement if it comes off the shelf. And so we have some concerns on all that, but I know we're in the investigative process. And so I do hope that we'll have more to tell you in the future. But you're right. We've built it this far. We know the mobile people are out there. And so we'll keep working on building more as we go.
Do you have a rough estimate on where the price might go? Not yet.
Mr. President, I don't. I've heard some scary numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
Appreciate your information. Thank you. It's way better than it used to be. President McBarnes. Wildlife Fund.
I got a crew with me today.
Cool.
Check 1, 2, oh, whatever. Mr. President, Director Bruce, members of the commission, it is so great to be here. And Ms. Kim, I'll just have you sit right there and just 1 second, we'll get to you. Yep. It's an honor to be here today. It's great to be in the burg of Saratoga. Beautiful community. Just really have enjoyed my time here. I'm going to riff a little bit. I'm going to go off my points in this presentation. And if my bosses slap my wrist for it, that's okay. I'm a big boy. I can take that. After listening to Chief Osterland's presentation this morning, I think I know what I'm probably going to be doing in 2025. Yeah, I'm really passionate. The Wildlife Fund, we've grown over the past 5 years. There's a huge need for terrestrial investments in this state. Habitat work, crossings, migration corridors. You all have heard me talk about that 99.9% of my presentations. I do think it's time that the Wildlife Fund make a concerted effort to diversify. I think this is a huge opportunity for us to get involved in this fish hatchery project. And the thing about this project is that really hits me as a citizen of Wyoming. It's not just safeguarding our fisheries, it's safeguarding our communities. Because AIS is scary. When I listened to Josh Leonard's presentation in Du Bois at the governor's conference at the National Military Vehicle Museum, scary what it can do to our utility infrastructure and impact us on a daily basis. So here's my commitment as president of the fund. Here's the action steps I'm going to take. I'm going to meet with Chief Osterland.
I'm going to dig into it more. I think we need to come up with a number, which might be a little bit difficult at this time, but if we're going to do a capital fundraising effort, if my board approves this, we need a number. We need to justify something. So I got to dig into that with him. I'd love to meet with Chief Nish. Sorry, Nish, not to put you on the spot, but just brainstorm marketing communication strategy around this to have a strategic plan wrapped around it. And then we have our fourth quarter board meeting, Commissioner Masterson, on December 17th at headquarters in Cheyenne. And I'd like to invite some folks from fisheries to come talk to the board about this and see if we can just put a really robust game plan together for it. So his presentation really struck me this morning. And this is why you guys created the Wildlife Fund, right? When there's shortfalls, we need the private sector to step up. I already asked Josh Corsi if he wanted to be a walleye fanatic in 2025. He told me no, but that's okay. I get told no a lot. So that being said, do have an exciting presentation for you today. I've been especially enthused about this one coming down to Saratoga because over the past 5 years, and you see it with the work that Josh does and Sean and Jessica Crowder, like momentum is growing in Wyoming, I think, from a grassroots level for wildlife. It's always been here, don't get me wrong. It's like it's a part of Wyoming's fabric, but how people are stepping up on a grassroots level to say, I care about wildlife. I want to be a part of things. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. It's really exciting to see, and that's what you're going to see in this presentation today. So number one, I'm going to announce a new exciting partnership based right here in Saratoga for Wildlife for Tomorrow. The Pronghorn Fund momentum continues on that front, and then the Pooled Migration Fund and what Director Bruce was alluding to in terms of the big game habitat program here in Wyoming, that continues to boom. And I just want to put this out as a disclaimer because Commissioner Masterson pushes me on this, and I certainly appreciate it. When you see Wildlife for Tomorrow or the Pronghorn Fund or the Pooled Migration Fund, people might be confused. It's like, Chris, you're the Wildlife Fund. These are all initiatives and programs underneath the umbrella of the Wildlife Fund. So the Wildlife Fund, we're the parent company, we're the parent 501c3, but we have a lot going on. And these are 3 specific initiatives that are housed within our organization, just to be very clear. So the first up, really excited about this. So Wildlife for Tomorrow, you all know our board member, Taylor Phillips, he's so enthusiastic about this, owns EcoTour Adventures in Jackson Hole. Started this program to really tap into the tourism sector of our economy to produce more resources for wildlife. And it took off really quick in Jackson, over 80 businesses, pretty good chunk of money raised to date. But a big challenge of ours has been spreading this program outside of Jackson because tourism happens outside of Jackson. And so we've really wanted to prove this model by expanding it across the state. And we have a linchpin now here in Saratoga. And so a good friend of mine, Kim, come on up here, and I'll let you introduce Lori here in a second. The Riviera Motor Lodge is a wonderful, wonderful hotel right here in Saratoga. I can say that because I stayed there last night. I really encourage you all, the next time you come here, stay with Kim. They take good care of you. Kim had a vision to create the wild room at the Riviera Motor Lodge. No, Commissioner Brokaw, not W-I-L-D, W-Y-L-D. I had to let my wife know that because I stayed in the wild room last night. And Kim is the general manager of the Riviera. She's done an absolutely wonderful job down there, the owners. There's a beautiful mural inside the wild room, and a portion of proceeds from everyone who stays in this room moving forward will come back through the signature program, Wildlife for Tomorrow, go on the ground for wildlife. I think this is a model that could be replicated across the state, at our hotels across the state of Wyoming. Kim's getting it started. So I want Kim to share your passion with the commission, introduce the artist, and we appreciate you so much. And I'm going to put up on the screen a picture of the mural. It does a fantastic job representing a bunch of critters that are near and dear to our state. So Kim, step on up. We appreciate you.
Well, I'm a little nervous. So I'm a transplant from Rhode Island 45 years ago. I traveled 48 states in a semi with my husband moving furniture back in the day. I was a nurse right out of nursing school from Rhode Island. And we traveled over the road and saw United States and decided to make our family here in Wyoming. The reason we chose to be in Wyoming was because of the wide open spaces, the friendly people, and the wildlife. I have a connection directly, I believe, with our spirits and the wildlife and all that goes on in Wyoming. It's just a wonderful place to live and raise a family. So when I had the opportunity to retire as a nurse and then become the general manager, I, of course, was on the Carbon County Visitors Council for 2 terms, 6 years. So I frequently attended the governor's hospitality and tourism conference. For the last 2 years, I've engaged with the Wildlife for Tomorrow crew, and this week it all came to fruition. Our vision was, because the growth we're seeing in Saratoga and across Wyoming since COVID, people have discovered us. And we've, of course, knowing that tourism is our number 2 supporting of Wyoming enterprise, we really feel we need to be behind tourism. But I believe that we need to create balance as people come, and we're building more and we're pushing the wildlife out of their natural resources along the river, in the mountains. As we grow as people, we need to find a way to partner with them so we can save this for our children later. I've seen mountain lion in our backyard the last 2 springs, and with the deer in town, and I see practices that could probably be educated upon how to better allocate our stuff for the future in management. And I think what you all do here is really important part of it. And as we know, partnerships are really important to get the word out. So we're excited to be the first in the state with this sort of a project.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Is Lori, is that the artist?
Yes.
Lori?
And I must finish up and bring Lori forward.
Yeah, Lori's the artist. So Lori, thank you for bringing this creation to life.
So Lori, if you go around town, go to our local hospital, you'll see her beautiful work. If you go right out here in the lobby, you'll see it right above the fireplace. And Lori's an avid hunter and enthusiast outdoor.
Yep.
And I would like you to say something.
Well, I greatly appreciate Kim and her vision and her bringing me alongside and helping her out with this. It's a wonderful project, I think.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you,
Well
guys.
done. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks.
Thank you.
She's a real star in our community. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Kim.
My pleasure.
Well done.
Thank you all.
So come stay at the Wild Room. It's wonderful. I locked myself out of the room at 10 o'clock last night and Kim had to let me back in. First-rate service. So also with Wildlife for Tomorrow, and Director Bruce alluded to it earlier, we are so thrilled to welcome Brianna Ball to our team. She's done a wonderful job as PIO for Game and Fish, has rose the ranks. It's like I told Director Bruce, I mean, that young lady, she just doesn't have any fail in her and she does not have any quit in her. And so this program, to really take it to the next level, we need someone focusing on it every single day, that's all they're doing. And so thanks to the Storer Foundation and Hughes Charitable Foundation, we have funded this position. Brianna will be starting with us on December 2nd. And so Brianna, I just want to warmly welcome you to our team. Game and Fish, she won't be far away. That's the good news. She'll still be interacting with the department. So Brianna, you're going to do great things. And I'm so proud of you. So we welcome Brianna Ball to our team. Next up, the Pronghorn Fund. You know, more pronghorn in Wyoming than anywhere in the world. And I always have to say contractually, because of my obligation with Rich Ginzel, pronghorn are not antelope. I always have to say that when I talk about the Pronghorn Fund. We created the Pronghorn Fund thanks to a great gift from Rich and Mary. We want to position this fund as the home for pronghorn lovers in Wyoming. If you want to help habitat, if you want to help connectivity, if you want to help preserve this crown jewel of wildlife in Wyoming, we have that spot for you. And so an initial gift of $350,000 was made by Rich and Mary. Excitingly today, Justin, I'm announcing some more funds coming to this. The Dallas Safari Club chapter of Casper is committing over $40,000 to the Pronghorn Fund to keep this momentum going along. And I have Dr. Jeff Smith here with me and Tim Evans from DCS. I want to thank you guys and invite you to come up and share a couple words with the commission.
Thank you very much for the podium. My name is Jeffrey Smith. I'm the president of the DSC of Wyoming chapter, and we're affiliated with Dallas Safari Club. which despite the name has now evolved to become a national hunting and conservation organization and actually an international one. There are three factors that made this easy for our board to make this contribution. One is the species, the second is the support, and the third is funding. The species, I think Chris has already alluded to, and I know all of you by now understand what pronghorn is and that it's a unique taxonomy that you can go and fascinate yourself with on the internet. The support is important to us. At some point in the recent past, my wife and I started doing legacy planning, and you get very critical about looking at nonprofits and what they do to support their mission and how they spend their money. Our own board has been undergoing some sort of mandatory board training to help improve our own organization. And I will say this is a major factor that figured into our decision. So you may not appreciate it, but from the critical eye of someone looking at that, the Wild Fund has done an excellent job in terms of creating an infrastructure. They've got a robust board. They allow for endowments for funding like this, and that makes a huge difference when you're the one that's writing a check. And the third thing is funding. Most of our funding comes from donations we get through auctions and things that we do in our activities. This particular year, one of your commissioners, who's the talkative guy in the corner over here, was nice enough to extend us a commissioner's tag. And it's only a coincidence that the amount that we donated is what we sold that tag for at auction. So thank you very much. And I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks very much.
Well done.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. So a permanently endowed fund for pronghorn, and we're in this for the long run. I'd love to see this capitalized one day at $5–10 million so that we have an enduring source of funding for this crown jewel species in Wyoming. And if anyone is out there that's interested in learning more, they can scan the QR code. They can reach out to us at the Wildlife Fund. We'd be happy to share more with you. So finally, to conclude my presentation, I'm going off of some of the comments from Director Bruce this morning. The Pooled Migration Fund. This was the third leg of the stool, partnering with our state and federal agencies. The Wildlife Fund created the Pooled Migration Fund to be the private sector component to this. Obviously, we're in a part of the world down there, the Bags Mule Deer Migration Corridor, one of the key focal areas of this program. And I know the commission has seen this map many times, but just to center us, I wanted to share it because we have some exciting news today. The impact of this work, and partners are in this room that help make this happen, namely Jessica Crowder with the Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust. Jessica, thanks so much for the work your crew did. The Wildlife Fund, we came out, we raised a little over $1.5 million to support this work. We first focused on human capacity building. You know, nonprofits, it's hard to raise money to support positions, but it's absolutely crucial. And with this program, connecting tribal partners and private producers with this influx of federal resources to protect these key migration corridors was critical. And so we chose to invest close to $1 million in organizations like the Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust to go out and make good things happen on the ground through this program. Through that, they conserved over 300,000 acres by accelerating $11 million in environmental quality incentive program investments, funding things like fence modifications and weed control, over $10 million in ASEP funding, which goes to fund conservation easements. So very important, safeguarding over 11,000 acres of working land. The program it's been great. It's been effective, which is why it's spreading now to other states. And a huge component of that are all the red shirts and the hardworking folks at Game and Fish. It wouldn't happen without them. So I'm truly thankful. But driving off of that success, we have new resources to replenish the Pooled Migration Fund so that we can continue working with the partners that I talked to you about and to continue to put money on the ground for projects in these key corridors. So I'd like to thank the Band Foundation. They're committing $600,000. Funny story, asked them for $500,000. They came back and gave us $600,000. That's how Wyoming's doing. I mean, that's the story that you folks need to know nationally. The Outdoor Fund with Cabela's Bass Pro Shops committing $200,000. Heard yesterday from the Wilberforce Foundation, they're committing $50,000. So we have $850,000 committed to continue these efforts in these corridors with our partners and on the ground projects. So a lot of synergy is happening there. And I want to thank Band. I want to thank Johnny Morris, Bass Pro and Cabela's, and the Wilberforce Foundation. So that being said, I'm going to conclude my presentation. I truly appreciate the time. Mr. President, Director Bruce, members of the commission, and I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions or comments? You know, I've been here since the start of this fund. Helped start it, and Ralph and I are probably the oldest boys and folks on the board.
Correction, Mr. President, I'm not the oldest man on the board. I'm the most
Well,
senior
I might have to take
commissioner.
that, but we're the oldest on this.
There you go.
We've
Look
been
at
here long.
Down there.
But
Good.
this fund has done so much for the state of Wyoming since it was organized. And evidence of that was just the situation that we were discussing, the problem with a possible overrun on a fish hatchery that's being rebuilt for certain purposes that are really beneficial to the state of Wyoming. And the director has already got a plan in the last couple hours of helping with that funding. And that's how this fund has helped the state of Wyoming ever since it was instituted. And it's just phenomenal. I want to thank you for your support, Mr. Bulldog. Thank you.
A lot more work to do. Thank you all so much. And again, appreciate Kim, Lori, Jeff, and Tim for being here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, everything it's just unbelievable, the amount of money and the amount of support that's been afforded to the state of Wyoming. It's very heartwarming. Thank you. Director Bruce and Chief King.
Mr. President, Commissioners, it is really an honor for me as director to be this first employee award, to go as a Lifetime Achievement Award to Greg Hyatt. Greg, could you come up here? Greg, I am going to make you stand up here as I talk about you too. So just be patient. No, you can talk at the end. But before I talk about some of his career achievements, I got to know Greg when I first came to the department through other people's eyes. And when his name would come up, I could tell by my coworkers in HPP that he was well respected for his experience and his knowledge. And then also everybody always wanted to call you. It was almost like, I'll call Greg. No, I'll call Greg. So I learned quickly it was because of his way of communicating and explaining the science back, specifically on our work with sage grouse and the executive order. It was always just part of the vocabulary. Who would call Greg to find out more? So as I got to know you over the years, I completely understand why that respect was already there with so many of my coworkers. But first I'd like to say about Greg is 47 years as the Rollins Sinclair wildlife biologist. 47 years as the Rollins Sinclair wildlife biologist. That is incredible, especially in a time when we know that we see lots of turnover, lots of movement becoming kind of commonplace in our industry. To just take a moment and respect those 47 years and that experience you have with that area is just truly remarkable. So thank you. So more about his specific work. The wildlife resources under Greg's care has greatly benefited from his influence, knowledge, expertise, historical perspective, and uncanny ability to make the right management decisions. Without exception, his management style, strategies, and decisions were based on sound science in balance with common sense, feasibility, and always with an eye on what is best for wildlife, while keeping social expectations and desires in mind. At the end of the day, it is the wildlife Greg has been responsible for that have benefited most from his long tenure and his steadfast dedication. A few of the highlights in his career to discuss First of all, his work with the establishment of the Ferris Seminole bighorn sheep population. His participation in and led capture operations and releases, as well as working with numerous individuals, landowners, multiple agencies to ensure the success of these bighorn sheep through continued habitat improvements and collaring projects. This population now thrives with 300 plus animals. As this population neared management objectives, it was Greg's forward thinking that resulted in progressive population management with increased ram hunting opportunities and ewe lamb seasons. Secondly, Greg has been a stable for that sage-grouse working group. He has truly shaped the way Wyoming and the department manages sage-grouse, including providing guidance and mentorship to our sage-grouse biologists. Greg has led his thoughtful and measured perspective to every version of the sage-grouse core area, LEC monitoring protocols, data storage, analysis, data product evaluation, and so much more. He is well respected, not for just his local knowledge, but also for his unique way at looking at issues and his willingness to engage in meaningful discussions. His participation in all things sage-grouse will be deeply missed. Greg was also an essential member of the Platte Valley Mule Deer Initiative, where once again he complete grasp of biology and management was a vital component to the success of the Platte Valley Mule Deer Management Plan that continues to be implemented today. It is during this process that many of his colleagues and the public came to appreciate how Greg could take complex technical information and make it easy to understand. I can't talk enough about Greg's work without talking just a little bit about that incredible memory that we all appreciate. Everything from dates, locations, and exactly who said what, you can guarantee that he can provide. In addition, he also has and continues to be greatly involved with his community. He has taught wildlife management portion of the hunter education classes for decades. His presentations were crafted very well and were highlight of the week for both kids and adults that went through the course. Greg's knowledge of the outdoors does not stop with wildlife. He has been a troop leader in the Boy Scout for years, influencing the lives of young men in Rawlins and many more. It's interesting too, this fall I had the opportunity to work at the check station with his replacement, Ashley. And as we went through the day, long and behold, here came Greg in a different capacity, not only to check to see if we needed anything, but also he was busy picking up all the litter at the sites as well. His supervisors, leaders, and role models themselves, his willingness to share knowledge and experience has helped to ensure the next generations and left a lasting legacy that will continue to benefit wildlife in the state for years to come. Please help me to recognize Greg for his outstanding work and this Lifetime Achievement Award. Congratulations. You want to say a few things?
President Ladwig, Director Bruce, members of the commission. I don't think you understand how honored I am to be here receiving this from you. I know several of the people have received this in the past. One of them is here. And to be included in their company, in your opinion, is a great, great honor. Thank you. Thank you very much.
President Ladwig, Director Bruce, members of the commission. It's my honor and privilege today to recognize our feed ground program manager, one of our feed ground program managers, Dave Hyde, with his 20 Years of Service Award. So I wanted to take a minute and talk a little bit about Dave. So Dave's been wearing a red shirt for a little over 20 years now, but he's been around red shirts and green trucks his entire life. Dave's the son of Dwayne Hyde, who is a retired game warden who served for 45 years for the agency. So red shirts and green trucks have been part of Dave's upbringing his entire life. Dave grew up in the Star Valley, like I mentioned, and helped his dad with lots of projects. You know, Dave is, he started with us as a contract elk feeder. He fed elk in the Grovont feed grounds and at the Horse Creek feed ground. And then we hired him as a contract worker for a little while. And then eventually we were lucky enough to hire him as a permanent employee. And Dave is pretty unique in his skill set and his knowledge and his abilities. You know, if you need to replace a chief game warden, it's pretty easy to do. You can find a bunch of them that are well suited to take on that role. But if we needed to replace Dave, we'd be in trouble because his knowledge and skill set is just very unique and well suited for running the feed ground program. And I thought the best way to illustrate that would be to kind of walk you through the year in the life of Dave in running our feed ground program. So every year, Dave and one other counterpart, we just have two people that run the feed ground program, have the responsibility of purchasing anywhere from 5,000 up to 10,000 tons of hay. And we're looking for very specific hay, right? We're trying to find small square bales, which is getting tough to find, and looking for good high quality hay. Dave has to do that in a short amount of time with the added layer of government bureaucracy dealing with state purchasing rules, et cetera. But somehow Dave gets that done, finds the hay that we need, gets it purchased. And then step two, we need to get that hay hauled to all of our 21 state feed grounds across the state. And again, that's no easy task. A lot of these feed grounds are off the beaten path. They're hard to get to. But Dave has this network and connection with folks that have the skills and abilities to get that hay hauled in short order. We have a narrow window of time to get it done from the time it's in the field to the time it needs to be put into the feed grounds before the snow flies. But Dave's network and knowledge and expertise allow for us to get that done. Next, Dave has to line up contract elk feeders for all of our feed grounds. I think right now we have 16 or 17 elk feeders for the 21 feed grounds. And that's a very unique job. Once we start feeding hay, you don't stop. So you got to have people that know what they're doing, can handle horses and equipment, and aren't going to call in sick or call in when the weather's rough. And again, Dave has built this network of folks that are very, very capable and competent, and he works hard to keep them happy so that they come back year after year and work for us in this unique role. So once we have feeders lined up, then Dave's got to make sure all the equipment is out there at the feed grounds and ready to go before the snow flies. That again is no small task. We're talking about tractors in place, teams of draft horses, sleighs, everything that's needed to hook up and harness horses to sleighs and to feed elk. Because once it starts, you can't stop. And that's really when Dave really shines. Once we start feeding elk, Dave has about 120, give or take a few day marathon to make sure that all the feeding operations across the 21 feed grounds go smoothly. During that time frame, I don't think Dave probably takes a day off. He's constantly checking in with the feeders. If there's problems that arise, he has to be Johnny on the spot and fix it. And when you're talking about a feed ground operation with tractors and draft horses, there's always things that can go wrong. But Dave just has the skills and ability to keep things running smoothly. It's extremely impressive. At the end of the season, all that stuff has to be put away. I mean equipment and critters, great big draft horses. Need to be doctored and vaccinated and taken care of and put out to pasture for the summer. And then the whole process starts again, including looking for replacement draft horses. We're purchasing 1 to 3 horses a year or so to keep that draft horse fleet going. So when you look at that skill set, I don't think you could find too many folks that could step in and replace Dave and what he does. And so just remarkable individual, great person to be around, a work ethic second to none. In recent years, we've tasked Dave with participating in our phase 1 and phase 2 of our feed ground public engagement process. He's played a really key pivotal role in that process. And now as we're developing feed ground management action plans, Dave's expertise is really critical to developing those plans, and it will be critical to implementing those plans as well. So I hope that the next chief is here to present you with another service award in another 5 years and another 5 years after that, because you're going to be extremely tough to replace. But Dave, congratulations and thank you for all your work.
Commissioner Ludwig, President, Director Bruce, Commission. It's my privilege to stand in front of you today and represent 20 years of service for wildlife. As Rick said, I grew up in a green pickup. I feel like I've worked for the Game and Fish Department for 50 years and been employed for 20 of us. Yeah, I got a lot of background in green trucks. So anyway, thanks for the privilege, and let's continue to put our best foot forward, and thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like to say something with Dave. And he wasn't, when people, they hit it so much on the head with this family. This family, it's their DNA. It's not a job. It's a DNA. It's a built-in passion for, and you don't see that very rarely. It's to them, like he says, he was born to do what he's doing now. And it's such a thank you, and thank for all of your family and everybody and your, how you promoted the wildlife and how you've been such a service to this state. It's unbelievable. So I want to thank you. And I know that from firsthand experience because our families were pretty close growing up. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Both to Greg and Dave, congratulations on your awards. It sounds like you definitely earned them, and it's super to be able to recognize your activities and your capabilities for these folks. It's really super. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna go to lunch. Be back about 1:15. We'll start back up with the rest of the meeting.
Mr. President,
Thank you.
before we go, should we do a call to the public? Is there anyone out there? Just looking at the faces I don't recognize, just wondered.
We can call to the public. Now we can eat. Okay, we'll call this back in session. You ready, Tony? Okay, next on the agenda is Chance Kirking, Assistant Fisheries Management Coordinator, and Chief.
President Ladwood, Commissioner, Director. I just want to take the opportunity, Chance is one of our new staff members. Introduce him since he'll be probably coming in front of the commissioner occasionally. Chance is Assistant Fisheries Management Coordinator within our management section. He was promoted as of October 1st, wasn't it? October 1st is when you took over the position. He comes from Laramie. He was a fisheries biologist there, and he'll be stationed in Cheyenne with us here. So turn it over to Chance.
Thanks, Al.
President Ladwig, Director Bruce, members of the commission, thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I know that over the past few years, you guys have heard off and on about some of the work that's been happening at Saratoga Lake. So I'm just excited to kind of tell the story about the project that occurred in 2022 and then give you all an update on the state of the lake today. Before we kind of jump forward though to the past couple of years, I wanted to give a little background on Saratoga Lake and the management that's occurred over in its time. So Saratoga Lake was built in 1951 and then quickly stocked with trout to provide a trout fishery for the local Platte Valley. And it was really managed as a trout fishery for since it was first built. It does have a flow to the lake that comes from the North Platte River, so it allows for other fish to enter into the lake that live in the river. And really what that meant was suckers in the form of long-nosed suckers and white suckers started to come into Saratoga Lake. When they got in the lake, they would get to pretty high abundance really quickly, and that often led to slowed trout growth rates, so the fish would end up being smaller than managers would really hope for. And the agency would take actions to try to improve the fishery. So that led to a period in the 1960s and 70s where the agency conducted a series of road-known projects to try to reduce the abundance of suckers in Saratoga Lake and try to get the trout growth rates to improve and improve that fishery for the public. After 1972, it was kind of left alone up into the 90s, and that's when we entered this other phase where we started to see these new species enter the lake from the river that were non-native fish. So the suckers were native to the North Platte River system. But in the 1990s, we started to see things that were not native in the form of walleye and then brook stickleback, which are a state listed AIS or aquatic invasive species, come into Saratoga Lake. And that really led to the project in 1998, which was another road-known project to remove suckers and then remove these new non-native fish from the lake and restart the fishery. And so that was the most recent road-known project occurred in 1998. And then the lake was kind of left alone from 1998 until recently and just stocked with trout. And that was most of the management that occurred since 98.
Excuse me, Mr. President, may I? Sorry to interrupt you, Chance, but for those of us like me who don't know, tell me what road-known does. Does it kill everything in the lake?
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah,
total-
so it's a good question. I can answer that in a few minutes, or I can do it now. I have a
Oh,
slide
okay,
dedicated
if you're
just
gonna
to
get
road-known.
to it,
Yep.
go forth.
Perfect.
Okay.
So kind of the only thing that happened since 1998 was just some standard, what we call our standard sampling, putting out nets in the lake to check on the status of the trout fishery and see how they're growing, see what the numbers look like, that kind of thing. And so in 2021, a graduate student was doing research on Saratoga Lake and found yellow perch in Saratoga Lake. And so that was the first record of this fish being in the upper North Platte River system. And this graduate student found these age 0 fish, so these really small fish as shown in the picture on the left. And we didn't really know too much about what that meant, but then when we did our netting in September, we found some yellow perch that were larger in size. These ones were 7 to 9 inches. And we still kind of thought the problem was smaller. We didn't have a lot of evidence that there was a lot of yellow perch in the lake, but we did now know that they varied in size and that there was probably adult perch in there that had spawned that spring, and that's what caused the small fish to be found. But then in the July or the January fishing derby, anglers' data really confirmed that the problem was probably a little bit bigger than we expected. They caught a lot of yellow perch at that January derby, and some that were actually pretty large size, 12, 13 inches. And so really just confirmed throughout 2021 that we had yellow perch present, and that this was a new thing to the upper North Platte River system. We believe that this was a illegal or illicit introduction to Saratoga Lake. Saratoga Lake's only stocked with trout that come from our in-state hatcheries. These hatcheries don't raise other species. There's no opportunities for accidentally including a cool water species like a yellow perch in that load of fish from say the Casper hatchery down to Saratoga Lake. So really thought that unlike those other fish I talked about earlier, these were the result, their presence in the lake was a result of a legal introduction. And so this map shows the state of Wyoming, and the blue pins kind of highlight all the known locations of fisheries with yellow perch. And that little pin right there, that's Saratoga Lake, and that's the North Platte River. So you can see that it occurs really near to the North Platte River. It's really well connected to the North Platte River. As I mentioned, we had other fish come in from the North Platte River in the past, but we don't think that these naturally moved into Saratoga Lake. There's no nearby populations. The nearest population in the North Platte River system is all the way down at Glendo, and there's known to occur in Colorado. And so given the stocking history and then the known locations, really felt that this was a legal introduction to that system. And then given that there's no populations nearby, I thought that this was a problem that we might need to address pretty quickly. So not only did, now it's isolated in its location, but really it's isolated in a location with close proximity to kind of a conduit for further escapement and then establishing new populations elsewhere throughout the North Platte River system. And so it really opened up the upper North Platte River system, all the local farm ponds, potentially some of the downstream reservoirs, Alcova, Pathfinder, Semino, and then the Medicine Bow and Sweetwater rivers, all to potential establishment of yellow perch populations. And specifically to yellow perch, the concern we had, or to Saratoga Lake, specifically the concern we had was that yellow perch don't often produce quality fishing opportunities in small, shallow reservoirs in Wyoming especially, but really throughout North America. They consistently, within 5 years, end up with a high abundance of yellow perch, like in this gill net, and then those fish become crowded and their growth rate's really slow, and you end up with a population that has an average size almost always less than 6 inches. And so we had concerns about kind of the larger watershed, but also the Saratoga Lake itself. And so given that we thought the population was really isolated to Saratoga Lake, and it really gave us an opportunity to try to address this problem. And one of the solutions that we had was one that they'd been using here in the past, as I already mentioned, and that was conducting a road known project. And so road known, it's a tool that fish managers have used for decades. It's been used in other countries for centuries to collect fish for eating, but it's a product that comes from the roots of a bean family, and they grind those roots up, and then it has a chemical in there that prevents fish from being able to uptake the oxygen from the water. And so it's pretty specific into the organisms that it affects, but anything with gills that can pull oxygen from water, it would prevent them. So fish, aquatic insects, early life stages of amphibians, all those things would then not be able to use the oxygen, and it would have mortality as the consequence. Road known though is really the only tool that we have that would allow us to get complete eradication if applied properly. And then those results can be realized really quickly. So we decided to move forward with the road known project. And this was kind of the timeline of everything I've talked about to this point, but we had about a 6 to 8 month period in 2021 just to confirm the yellow perch were there and what the size of the problem might be. And then we spent about a 2 month period developing a plan to try to pull off this project, and really had 6 months. We wanted to act quickly so the fish couldn't get out of Saratoga Lake and start to cause problems elsewhere. So we really set a target of about the middle of September to try to do the road known project, and gave ourselves 6 months to try to get all the pieces in place to do that. I think, yeah, you all have heard some of the work that's occurred with that, but there was 3 phases of the project we really focused on during that 6 months to try to get ready for a successful road known project. And so those really revolved around trying to understand how we would apply the chemical effectively, how to be safe given its location and proximity to the local community. But then the other one was just getting the local public and stakeholders engaged on this problem. And so this picture really just wanted to show, it was the first time for us that we'd used a specific landing page on our website to try to convey information to the public. And this was really useful. We worked with the communications division and they were able to consistently update this single web page with information from different news releases that were created. We at one point created or enacted an emergency regulation to liberalize the limits on trout to try to get anglers the opportunity to harvest more. So all that information was able to be stored here and was really a good way for us to talk with the public about the project. And all that kind of worked out. We were able to apply the road known in mid-September and move forward with kind of moving forward with the lake. And so really quickly after the road known was applied, we started to see dead fish and clean up dead fish. We saw lots of yellow perch, more than I think any of us expected to see. And they really were pretty much in the sizes that we'd expected, but there was just a few of these really large adults that were 14 to 15 inches roughly that probably were some of the first ones that were introduced to the lake. And we cleaned up fish for about 2 weeks. It was a lot of fish biomass that ended up on the banks. And a lot of this biomass that we disposed of in pits was in the form of suckers. So the same as those past projects that I discussed. It was really a secondary benefit of this project happening in 2022 was to remove a bunch of the sucker biomass for the improvements of the trout fishery. So after applying the chemical, seeing all the dead fish that we were cleaning up, we felt pretty good about that project being a success, the application of the road known being done well, but we left it in the water to break down naturally. Road known can either be left to just naturally break down via the elements, the sunlight, the water temperature, and it'll just degrade over time, or you can use a different product to neutralize it. But if you leave it in the water to break down in a closed system where it's not getting out and affecting other fisheries, you just increase the exposure time of the fish to the chemical and hopefully have a higher chance of a successful fish kill. And so we left it in there and it took about 3 weeks for that chemical to break down. And then once the chemical was gone, we went back with gill nets in October of 2022 and put a lot of gill net hours in the lake, thousands of hours of gill netting. And this was a really welcome site for the crew. That's just an empty gill net. So we netted a lot and just confirmed that the project was a success, the application was a success, and the lake was fishless. We used some other nets as well to look for small fish, the minnows and stuff that existed, and those also confirmed that we didn't have any fish survive that project. So by October of 2022, we were really ready to move forward with getting the Saratoga Lake fishery restarted. And so it's located right near town. We try to manage it as a community fishery. Really, we have two objectives for the lake from a management standpoint. And with it being a community fishery, what we're really aiming for is to have pretty high catch rates or moderate catch rates for both anglers. And when we do our sampling, that's kind of how we evaluate that. And also have a higher proportion of fish, about half those fish being larger than 16 inches. And so basically from 1998 to 2010, we were kind of meeting both those objectives. By 2010, the sucker numbers had really increased and we were not meeting those objectives. And we were really hopeful that we could get the lake back to a good state where we were hitting both of those targets. So that kind of fast forward, we left it fishless throughout the winter of 2022-23, just to make sure if anybody was poking around down there, we might also have confirmation if there was any fish surviving. And no one really reported anything happening in the lake, which was a good thing. So we moved forward with stocking it in early spring of 2023. And to kickstart the fishery, we used both sources from our game and fish hatcheries, but we also got collaboration with the federal fish hatchery just outside of town and Saratoga National Fish Hatchery. They stocked some fish in here as well. So in the first year, we stocked a pretty high number just to get this thing back up and running. We stocked just over 20,000 fish in a variety of trout species, from rainbow trout, brown trout, and tiger trout, with rainbows being the primary species that we try to provide for anglers. And the rainbow trout were stocked mostly in like that 7 to 9 inch range, and in that spring time frame. We did have 500 that were stocked in the late winter that were 19 inches. And that was to help with the ice fishing derby. So we went back in the fall to see how the fishery was doing, and it was doing really well. The fish grew about 1 inch per month, so their growth rates were really exceptional. What we saw before the Rotenone project is that it took about 3 months for fish to grow 1 inch. So we were getting 1 inch in 1 month, and that was on par with kind of what they saw following those other treatments in the past. So the trout growth rates really increased, and their abundance was high. We really thought that painted a good picture for the community to have the fishing derby in January again. So the town's was very supportive throughout the whole process. They canceled the ice fishing derby that I think was, a big hit for them. That was their 40th anniversary, or I guess postponed it. But by 2023, felt like they could move forward with hosting that derby, and things were in a much improved state. After that derby, things went really well. Anglers caught as many trout as they had in at least the past 15 years. Got some media coverage that, people were pretty happy with the fish that were caught, the size of fish that were caught, and how it responded in just 1 year after that Rotenone project. In 2024, we continued the stocking of rainbow, tiger, and brown trout. You can notice the numbers have dropped off pretty considerably in year 2, at least for rainbow trout. And that's the annual request that we ask for, the actual standard amount of fish that we put in the lake. So as I mentioned, that first year, we just put some extra fish in there to kind of speed it up. And then when we netted it in the fall of 2024, we've really seen this abundance of rainbow trout go pretty high. Our target's about 1 fish in our gill nets every 4 hours. And in the fall of 2024, we were getting 4 fish or 4 rainbow trout in 1 hour. So the abundance in there is really high right now. Growth rates are still really high. There's an abundance of food resources available after that project. We've seen them grow, and now we're seeing fish up to 19 inches by the fall of, by October. So really good things for the trout fishery. I think if you're an angler in this area, you should be really excited about the opportunity that the lake provides right now. It's in as good of a state as it has been in at least 20 years. I think the derby this year should be super exciting for folks. The one kind of downside is these suckers are really good at getting back into the lake and growing and reproducing. So we noticed that in year 1, we didn't catch any suckers in the gill nets. And by year 2, we were already getting a pretty good abundance of those fish, and they were up to almost 15 inches. So they'd come in pretty quickly, reproduced, and grew pretty fast as well. So I think similar to the past, the benefits of the Rotenone project on the improved trout growth probably has some kind of shelf life, around 10-ish years, I think, to expect this thing to be really, really good. With that, that's kind of where it's at. It's in a really good place, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, tell me what was the decision on your mix on your rainbow trout, tiger trout, and brown trout? Is that just for predation for like the tiger trout for the suckers, or what was your methodology so you decide those 3 trout?
Yeah, Mr. President, Commissioner Roberts. Short answer is you're spot on. But up until 2017, it was mostly only stocked exclusively with rainbow trout. And then we were trying to figure out how to kind of manage around the abundance of suckers, maybe get some fish in there that could eat the small minnows. There's a large population of fathead minnows. There's also quite a few small sized suckers that end up in the lake. So really add some more trout species that are better at eating other fish that could could still have good growth rates by using that resource. And so the brown trout and the tiger trout were both added to the annual stocking strategy under the premise that they're just a little better eating fish and using that resource.
Mr. President, from the onset of the problem, through the road known, through the restocking, do you have any idea what that cost the department?
Yes, I had it on a slide that I don't have with me. I think I could get you the real number afterwards, but I think it was $140,000 approximated. It's about 100 in just the road known itself. And then the man hours to conduct the project, that's a little bit more of a guesstimate. But just the day of the road known application, we had about 30 department employees step up. We had folks from every division, tons of support. And also I'd like to say thanks to the commission for all the support to do this project. Commissioner Brokaw showed up at the public meeting, and so you guys were all pretty important for this being a success as well, but it wasn't free.
Thank you.
Hey, guys.
Yes. Come on up. We've got time.
Can you push the button to turn it on?
There you go.
Hi, I'm Kim Hytrack again, sorry. So I have a passion for the lake. I told you I moved, I relocated here. We built our house on 40 acres on the lake and moved in on the fishing derby in 1997. So I have a passion for the lake as well. We since have moved because my kids are grown and the house is rather large, and it's been repurchased. But my concern as a citizen is I have a question about the cyanobacteria that seems to occur like every August now. And we as locals use the lake quite a bit for recreation and dogs and kids, and I'm concerned about why that's happening. It's like a new trend. And in August, it's been the hottest month of our summer. We as locals, we can't enjoy the lake anymore. And I'm concerned. Have you looked into how that's happening and why? I've done some research of my own, and I didn't know if fertilization of areas around the area, the lake itself, on the banks. I'm not pointing fingers, but I just think it's worthy of some research. I'm just concerned that as a citizen that we have lost that recreational area every August. It seems like a new trend. So thank you for your time.
Anything else? Is Josh here? Always hiding. Josh? You're up. You're hiding. I didn't see you.
Yeah, thank you, President Ladwig, Director Bruce, members of the commission. I'm going to talk about something free and exciting, actually, and really, I'm very excited. It was great to be able to address you this morning in partnership with the Stock Growers Land Trust, but this was really the first intent I had to get on the agenda when I reached out to Eric and Nish. And this goes back a little history on this. This actually is a direct result from the Mule Deer Days Project Allocation Committee, which is an all-volunteer committee that at the time Deputy Director Bruce was a part of. This year, following the 2024 event, as a member of that committee, as this committee was navigating and looking at project proposals that was put before them to allocate funds to, one of the other members of the committee had brought up the need for educational pieces associated with at that time, the Dry Piney Wildlife Crossing Project. And there was a lot of great discussion amongst the committee. We tend to sit on the sidelines and let the committee navigate their discussions independently, but are there to answer questions. And following that discussion, they weren't reviewing a proposal that was specific to a wildlife crossing educational type kiosk. But it really was obvious that there was great interest amongst many of the members of the committee. And so I had afterwards a conversation the following week with Deputy Director Bruce at the time about the value and the merit that that idea had. And like anything, it always comes down to funding, but also good planning. And I attended the ribbon cutting ceremony of the Dry Piney Wildlife Crossing Project. And I've said this before, but I took great value in some words that at the time Deputy Director Bruce had brought forth. And that was that there will be hopefully a day where we can have these wildlife crossings where they don't require ribbon cutting, because it's just the way we do things. And I too look forward to that day where we can get to that point. But we're not there yet. And wildlife crossings are very valuable. They're very expensive, but you can quantify their effectiveness immediately. And so I had a conversation with Commissioner Roberts about the potential for using a commissioner license to generate revenue for the South Kimmer Wildlife Crossing project that was undergoing engineering this year and is slated to break ground next spring and to be about an 18-month-long project. Commissioner Roberts felt that there was enough value in that, and we orchestrated a late plan, despite it being September and most folks having their plans in place for their fall. We were able to offer and generate revenue for that tag with it being allocated to an educational type kiosk. Again, just an idea in the sky at the time of what could be incorporated into the South 189 Kimmer Wildlife Crossing. We've now had 2 meetings with Game and Fish, and I will tell you, you have a rock star in Nish. She is incredible, and our counterparts in WYDOT. And so hats off to Director Westby and the team that he has orchestrated to be involved in this. We will be meeting again on December 9th. We have identified the mile marker and the location. And as luck would have it, not just one kiosk, but 2, one for the northbound lane and the southbound lane. They have identified the 5 underpasses, the 1 overpass, but there is a spot that already has 2 turnouts in the north and southbound lanes. And I can tell you that they are just as excited as Game and Fish and as us. This is going to be incredible, and I do believe it'll be something that could potentially be implemented in all future wildlife crossings. I think there's a great story to tell there. This location in particular, as Commissioner Roberts knows, there is a steady stream of traffic that is on that roadway coming from Evanston, supporting some of the infrastructure growth within the South Lincoln County area. And it's needed now more than ever, but that's all I have. I just wanted to give you an update because this is something that I think all of you can hang your hat on. Everybody in this room that is wearing a red shirt should be very proud of this, because this is going to tell a great message for all of the stakeholders that love our wildlife resources. So if you have ideas on what potentially this kiosk may look like or what it could, that is what our next meeting on December 9th will be, to look at some of the other type of educational kiosks that are orchestrated in other states and even in our own state. But I think that there's an incredible and powerful message of how important the movement and connectivity of migration is. This key winter range in this area. And then I will give a nod to the other folks from the department, in addition to Nish, that have been involved with this. Sean Yancey out of the Green River region, and Renee Shell as well. Just I'm telling you, the state agency that we have and the staff that it has is second to none. So WYDOT would be a close second, but thank you for that.
Thank you, Josh. Justin?
All right. Good afternoon, President Ladwig, Director Bruce, members of the commission. Today, we're going to talk about, as you guys have been updated a little bit before, but really I guess the fairly unprecedented fire season we've had over this past year. So Director Bruce in her director's report this morning talked about, I think there was 1,900 and some odd fires that torched off this year. And I read a piece somewhere that it was actually the most significant wildfire season Wyoming's experienced since 1988, which were the fires of Yellowstone. So certainly these fires have they've fostered a lot of public attention, and really they've also created a lot of headaches, frankly, for some of our staff, particularly in our Sheridan region. So we're going to talk a little bit about the impact of these fires and the department's response. So first of all, we'll start off with the biggest fire that occurred in western Wyoming, and this was the Pack Trail fire. So this was it's predominantly on U.S. Forest Service land with some private land and holdings west of Du Bois up in the Togety Pass area. This fire burned about 90,000 acres. So, prior to the Mullen fire, I mean, this alone would constitute one of the larger wildfires in Wyoming's history. This fire really didn't cause a whole lot of hardship from the standpoint of logistical response that the department was required to carry out. But in fact, for the most part, aside from the recognition of issues that private property owners may have suffered with loss of cabins and structures and things like that. So that withstanding, this fire from a wildlife and a wildlife habitat standpoint was deemed to be largely beneficial. And I guess that's a point I would always like to stress when we have these wildfires. Like the doom and gloom associated with a wildfire often gets all the attention, but these are natural processes. Our ecosystems have evolved with wildfires. In an awful lot of cases, they do really good things for wildlife over the long term. This wildfire is predominantly in deadfall, beetle kill areas. There's a lot of conifer encroached aspen communities. And so in these cases, wildfire is the best tool to clean up a bunch of those conifers, regenerate aspen stands, and hopefully even promote, tall forward production in the understory. So one complication that this fire did have with respect to our hunting seasons is just how it likely affected elk harvest. We don't have our final numbers on because hunting seasons are still going on in places. But with our final harvest numbers, we don't know that yet, but in all likelihood, due to changes in elk distribution, a lot of hunters stayed home. There were Forest Service closures that went through a lot of the main hunting season. We felt like our lander folks felt like it probably actually impacted elk harvest. So with that, now the rest of this presentation is going to really focus on our Sheridan region. So our Sheridan region really kind of bore the brunt of Wyoming's wildfires, northeast Wyoming. So, and when I say our Sheridan region, of course, I mean all the landowners, all the citizens that live in that part of the state. So here's just a few statistics that this just pertains to the department Sheridan region, but there were 62 different wildfires that were greater than 5 acres in size. Almost 500,000 acres burned. And we documented the loss of at 70 big game animals, and the majority of those were antelope. So those were animals where the direct mortality was associated with those fires. So here, again, if you read a lot of the news, you've some of these names of these fires will be familiar to you, but we had the Constitution and the Flat Rock fires by Gillette, the Short Draw fire and the Remington fires, which were largely in Montana, but set off around the state line. And then the House Draw fire. And this is the one that really caught a lot of attention because this is the one that it was just really, really infamous. I mean, this fire torched off about 170,000 acres in about a 36-hour period. So the speed with which this fire moved is just unprecedented. And so all of this has obviously caused hardships on private landowners, livestock producers, that sort of thing. And so what was our response? Well, the department actually mounted a pretty significant response. And so what we did is we organized several landowner meetings. Then we also worked with county commissions, the governor's office. I mean, you'll see in the top picture here, this is actually Director Bruce and Governor Gordon at a landowner meeting just a couple weeks ago up in Sheridan. We hosted a series of landowner meetings to basically inform folks and help inform folks. And it wasn't just us. We had our federal partners there as well. We had the NRCS, FSA, Weed and Pest, a whole bunch of different folks. And we got together and basically developed a suite of information for these folks to let them know what are the wildlife recovery or wildfire recovery assistance programs available to them. So that was a lot of work in and of itself. I think it was really well received. And I think we've put together a good package of information for folks. We're also continuing to work on securing funding for invasive annual grass control. As you guys got updated by Regional Wildlife Supervisor Dustin Shorman at the September meeting, anytime we have these large scale fires, especially in these grassland communities, the threat of cheatgrass coming back from fires is always something that we need to take seriously and plan for. So a lot of work has gone into trying to secure funding for invasive annual grass control. That's working with various NGOs, funding partners, the governor's office, and ultimately the legislature. And then a lot of work has also gone into just assisting with just damaged fence removal and reconstruction. And I'm going to focus a little bit more on that with respect to our WHMAs later on. So really all these efforts have culminated in just developing a long-term response to assist these landowners, these land managers with resources so they can hopefully recover from the impacts of these fires. Then the other thing, and I'll touch on this on the last slide too, is the amount of coordination that went in to notifying hunters whose hunting opportunities were lost due to these fires. So I'll save that for the last slide. So one of the restoration programs that we're pretty excited about is aerial sagebrush seeding. So in Wyoming, we've never done anything like this, but our partners are, the Nevada Department of Wildlife has done this extensively. And is what it basically entails. I mean, it is just what it is. It's aerial seeding sagebrush seed. We've done a lot of work with sagebrush plantings, but we've never aerial seeded. And so the plan is to try to seed 2,000 acres, and this would be in the Buffalo core area. That's the sage grouse core area. And this is due just to the sheer scale of sagebrush that was lost. We lost over 65,000 acres of sagebrush just in this core area. So the plan is in place. We've already gotten a lot of funding committed through a lot of partners, including from folks in this room, such as the Mule Deer Foundation. The total project cost is north of $400,000. We don't know that we're quite going to get there, but we are going to attempt to reseed as many acres as funding will allow. And basically the plan for this is to aerially seed right before a precip event. So we're going to do it like here in the next few weeks, hopefully, even if it's on top of snow, but we'll watch the weather, hopefully put the seed down and then have more snow come on top of it so it doesn't all blow away. Other restoration efforts, I should say, are going to include things like willow sprigging, cottonwood planting, those sorts of things. So now moving on to the elk fire. The elk fire was the big one that folks dealt with this fall. This fire was really unprecedented in nature, really just, not only due to the size, but also the timing of it. It's pretty remarkable to have a wildfire burning in the timber at the very end of October. So because, it was unprecedented for a lot of reasons, but it's what that has done is created a particular set of challenging circumstances for our Sheridan region folks to deal with. So you'll notice on this map, these stars relate to our two wildlife habitat management areas that were affected. This is our Amsden or Amsden Creek WHMA, and this is our Kearns WHMA. So first of all, on the Amsden, this is a WHMA that was established 80 years ago. It's almost 4,000 acres in size. It was originally purchased by the department to serve as big game crucial winter range. Mule deer certainly winter there, but elk is the primary species that winters on this property. On this WHMA, we winter about 400 elk annually. And we also, in order to protect wintering elk, have a seasonal closure to human presence during the winter months. And one of the things that occurs on both this and the Kearns WHMAs is we have 8-foot high elk-proof fencing. And this fencing is basically on the periphery of the WHMA, and it's designed to keep elk on those identified winter ranges. Because if anyone's familiar with Sheridan County, there's an awful lot of rural development that's gone on. And there's also some very large ranches that abut some of those properties as well. And so in this case, elk don't have a whole lot where else to go in the immediate vicinity away from the Bighorn Mountains to winter without running into high potential for conflict. And so within the Amsden WHMA, it burned almost 32 or over 3,200 acres, which was 84% of the unit. And it actually destroyed or severely damaged, I should say, 5 miles of that elk-proof fence. So now moving to the Kearns WHMA, this is the one that's further north, closer to the Montana state line. This one was established 75 years ago. It's almost 5,000 acres in size. Again, it was purchased as Big Game Crucial Winter Range. And this one winters about 800 elk on an average year. And we also have the seasonal winter range closures to human presence. And it also has elk-proof fencing, which you can see in the picture. And there's 11 miles of that elk-proof fencing on this WHMA. So as you can see from this map, here are the boundaries of that WHMA. This fire burned just north of 3,200 acres, which was 65% of that property, and destroyed or severely damaged 6 miles of elk-proof fence. So what does that mean? Well, you guys have heard plenty from us about concerns with elk. Elk are a wonderful species of wildlife. But having said that, too many elk can cause some hardships in the wrong places. And so recognizing where the land ownership, the juxtaposition of private land ownership, smaller properties, larger properties, where cattle occur, that sort of thing, where elk can go. Our Sheridan region folks instantly recognized the concerns that losing this elk fence was going to create. But not just the elk fence, it's also the forage loss. So as you can see from this picture, I mean, it basically took out where those fires burned, it took its complete forage loss. And so given that, we also, we just know that there's high potential for conflict. So as these elk wander off of WHMA, we no longer have that elk-proof fencing to hold them. They can go to places where they're going to cause conflict, but and they could be directly commingling with cattle on feed lines. And the other thing that elk can do, or really other wildlife can do, if you have them move significantly and find new homes, just so to speak, such as wintering in a whole new area, we don't want them to establish that as a behavioral pattern going forward. So we don't need elk going clear east of I-90, for example, and essentially setting up shop and then learning that behavior and repeating it year after year. So given this potential for conflict, the region has really taken a very proactive response. And is what these efforts have culminated in is essentially hiring 2 6-month damage technicians. Those folks are on board now. These folks are going to be tasked with just actively monitoring elk, keeping in touch with landowners that could potentially be affected by elk movements that are irregular or really unprecedented due to these fires. And they're essentially going to do everything they can just to mitigate the problems associated with that. So they've already stockpiled a whole bunch of fencing materials to provide fencing for like stored hay, that sort of thing. They'll implement measures such as hazing if need be to move elk away from feed lines, stored hay. We've also will invoke the use of our Chapter 34 and 56 permits to address problem elk in areas where we can't effectively move them to an area where their presence is more tenable. And we also have an interest in doing what we can to try to keep elk away from the state line where we have some, we'll just say, unregulated harvest issues. So then with respect to elk management, another thing that they've proactively done is they've also, in addition to all the landowner meetings that occurred up there, to talk about wildfire recovery assistance is our folks have met with landowners just to talk about hunting season and harvest and just remind them that we need all the harvest that we can get just to try to, keep elk numbers at bay as best as we can as well. I mean, because these fires with all the seasonal or all the Forest Service closures, things like that, there were huge impacts to just hunting opportunities this fall. So a lot of groundwork has gone into just those discussions with landowners. And then one of the other things that we've done is we also have, in addition to these 2 6-month AWACS, is 2 contract feeders coming on board. And excuse me, I skipped ahead here. So here's really the big rock that we're tackling here. And that is we are intending to implement and are implementing emergency feeding of elk in these situations. So given the unprecedented nature of these fires, like I talked about, they were very late burning. They didn't allow time for adequate just grass germination following the fire, just given we're so late in the fall already. All the issues with elk fence being damaged and limited options where elk can actually go and still be socially accepted. The decision was made to implement emergency feeding of elk. And this is a decision we just do not take lightly. This is a lot of consideration went into this, I should just say. And so what that is going to entail is we're going to have 2 contract feeders in place. We have secured hay from a couple different places in the state. Dave Hyde, who got a service award today, was instrumental in helping us secure hay. So we've purchased just north of 1,000 tons of hay. That hay is going to be strategically stored in a couple different places where it can be accessed all winter long. The plan is to have this be a really nimble strategy because while we think we know what elk are most likely to do, in fact, we don't know for sure what elk are actually going to do. And so our plan is to at least stop them short and right now feed on our WHMAs to try to get them to stay there to the best of our ability. I would really like to stress that despite all the work that's gone in, all the expense that's gone into securing hay, getting these contract feeders in place, the damage techs, that sort of thing, is that this is a plan that is going to be in place for this winter and this winter only. We don't want to turn this into a long-term feeding operation. And we're going to be as flexible as we can to make sure it's successful this coming winter. So I wanted to just bring this to your attention. Just as a reminder of folks that may not know, there's actually commission policy that deals with emergency feeding. So it's actually titled Policy 7D, which is supplemental feeding of elk and wild bison. But essentially the primary tenets of this policy are that it directs the department not to operate or develop any new feed grounds without pre-approval unless an emergency situation occurs. And then if that emergency or that necessity is identified, that temporary feeding operations or emergency feeding operations can occur so long as there is agreement between the Game and Fish Director and then the commissioner whose district that is in. So I would also like to remind folks that this tool is actually periodically used. We try to keep it to a minimum, but sometimes it just has to be used. And so it was used most recently during that severe 22-23 winter 2 years ago. And it was used there extensively in the Green River region and Star Valley and a little bit in the Pinedale region. But again, I know I said it once, but I just want to stress again that the decision is not made lightly because feeding elk is it's typically not our preferred solution with elk feed grounds aside, right? So anytime we're artificially concentrating animals, we invoke concerns such as, expenses for one thing, but certainly disease concerns. There's always that potential that it could facilitate CWD transmission. And in this case, albeit hopefully low, but there is potential of concerns with brucellosis. We have had brucellosis documented in elk in the Bighorns. It's mostly been on the west side of the Bighorns, but we also don't have a really good handle for what Montana has for brucellosis on their side of the state line. So last slide. With that, I touched on it earlier, but a lot of the work that the Sheridan region also put into was really extensive communication, notification. And I should say not just the Sheridan region, but also our communications folks in Cheyenne that put into notifying hunters about this unprecedented fire season. So in a case where we have a provision in our Chapter 44 licensing reg that allows for license refunds or carryovers for all kinds of different reasons, medical emergencies, that sort of thing. But one of those reasons is due to natural disasters. And so if a significant portion, it's actually 50% or more of your hunting opportunity is lost due to administrative closures. So for example, like a Forest Service closure, we will offer that opportunity for folks to get a license refund or carry that license over into the next year. We put a ton of stress and emphasis in our communications with the public that, hey, these fires may have impacted your opportunity. In the case of those fires, such as the house straw fires earlier in August, they took out entire ranches. So you have outfitters that have leases, ranchers that give permission, folks that have secured permission for private land, and then their opportunity was lost. They couldn't, given the private land nature of that landscape, they couldn't just immediately go secure another hunting opportunity somewhere else. So there was a lot of outreach that went into that. We also stressed, hey, these landowners are dealing with much bigger problems than you're hunting. They're dealing with direct loss of livestock, their property, their grass, that sort of thing. So please don't overwhelm those landowners with phone calls. Let us kind of handle it. Here's your opportunity, and go from there. So is what that ultimately culminated in, at least to date, these numbers can change. But with respect to these fires, they resulted in 166 licenses being carried over and 250 license refunds issued to date. And again, and then the very last thing I would say, and I'd stand for any questions, would be, I know I said it multiple times, but I just can't say enough about all the good work that our folks in the Sheridan region put into this. I mean, you can just see pictures in this slide of working in a rainstorm where they secured some donated steel pipe from an oil company, and they were using that to rebuild fence as quickly as they possibly could on our units. But yeah, there was a lot of long hours and time spent by our folks up there just dealing with all things wildfires. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Go ahead.
Sure, Mr. President. Okay. Justin, so does the Sheridan region have to bear the brunt of these repair costs, or is there money in Cheyenne to help them? Like when we're talking about the 7 and 11 miles of fence, what's our time frame for getting that done?
So President Ladwig, member of the commission, or members of the commission, Commissioner Brokaw. So we've been able to absorb all those costs internally, which has been a really, really positive thing. We were able to realize some savings in some places. So including the fence, and I would invite Chief King or Deputy Chief Smith to chime in case I'm missing any details with respect to the budget. But we've been able to absorb all of these costs internally. The donated pipe certainly helped. A lot of it is just our manual labor that's going into fixing those fences. We know, getting to your question about the timeline, they're not going to be done as quick as we'd like them to be. I think the last estimate I heard was they'll be lucky to get done within 3 months. And that could also depend on what winter brings and that sort of thing. So it's probably not going to be fully done until sometime next year. With respect to the emergency feeding in the hay, we were actually able to realize some significant savings within our budget due to a much lower cost of hay this year from our feed ground operation. So that's where Dave Hyde came in, and other folks over in that part of the state, where they were able to actually help use that unspent money due to the lower cost of hay for purchasing hay on feed grounds in western Wyoming, to use that to facilitate the purchase of hay in the Sheridan region.
Okay, my next question might not be very well thought out, but We have insurance on commission-owned assets, buildings, regional offices. Do we have insurance on commission-owned lands, HMAs? And would that be applicable here?
Members of the commission, Commission President, Director Bruce, you're asking a newbie some stuff here, so I guess I would also invite Meredith back there to come up if you could maybe shine a little more insight into the budget issues here. But with respect to insurance, I know there's been discussions. I should probably shut up. There's been discussions with respect to filing claims with risk management, and that's.
Yeah, President Lagwood, Commissioner or Director Bruce, Commissioner Brokaw, we have insurance on all of the structures on all of the commission-owned properties and other properties that are managed that we have structures located on. We also have insurance on pivots, for example, or other major infrastructure type of equipment. We do not have any specifically on fence, but we do have 2 claims in currently with risk management for that consideration.
Well, Mr. President, I was fortunate enough to drive around with Dustin Shorma all day on Monday and check out all of this. And I thought that the plan and what we saw was well thought out and looks like it's going well. On Kearns, we actually saw a few hundred head of elk back on the WHMA already, and they were using we're trying to get them to stay there instead of moving towards that unregulated harvest area. And it looks like it's, at least early on, looks like it's working. So yeah, I appreciate all the work from the Sheridan region and all the teamwork across the state to help with that. And even the fencing part of it is going well, it looks like. And right now, being an open winter so far, if that keeps up, then I think it goes a little bit easier, but we never know how that's going to go. So yeah, I thought it went well. It's going as well as can be.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Commissioner Bell, I would add that the significant moisture that the region received a week and a half ago, coupled with the really warm temps that we realized this week, have actually resulted in a little bit of forage green up that we were not anticipating just 2 weeks ago. So there's a little bit of help, but we'll see if it's buried under 2 feet of snow. So
yeah, I forgot to mention that it was starting to actual green up. It was nice to see. So thanks for that.
Any other comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's close to the end of the actual agenda. Right. This is tied into this one with Mr. Corsi and Mr. Sheehan come up, please. I mean, not Corsi, Lazak, I'm sorry. They don't even look like, do they?
No.
All right, President Ladwig and Commissioners and Director Bruce, thank you for having us up here. I just want to introduce you all. Most of you met him. This is our new CEO and President, Greg Sheehan, and I'll let him speak.
Welcome.
I'll sit down for a second. Thank you, President Ladwig, Commission members, and Director Bruce. It's great to be here today. As Sean mentioned, I'm the new president and CEO of the Mule Deer Foundation. I've had a chance to introduce myself to most of you today, I think. So it's been great being here today as part of this meeting and learning what's going on in your world. And there's a lot. We'll talk a little bit in just a moment about the fires and what we're trying to do to help resolve some of that. But I just as I watched this last presentation, I look at the last couple of years, 2 winters ago, it's a pretty severe winter. Wildlife were pretty challenged, had a lot of wildlife loss across the West, not just in Wyoming. Now, these fires this year, it's been tough on wildlife. One of the commissioners said earlier, you know, with mule deer, it's sort of death by 1,000 cuts. And I think we've all heard that before. There's just lots of things, and some of these losses are pretty impactful. When we lose these browse species, sagebrush and things, that they don't just pop right back. Some of these grasses will be back next year, and some of these maybe elk situations will cure themselves pretty quickly. But where we lose those browse communities, they're not going to jump right back in a year or 2 or 10. And I'm so glad that there's, you know, an early effort to get on top of that. So we'll mention that more in just a moment. You know, as I've sat here today and watched some of these presentations, it's been very impressive to see the collaboration that's here in the state of Wyoming with some of the different groups, the Stock Grower Land Trust, Muley Fanatics, the Wildlife Fund, and others. It's quite impressive. And you know, a little bit about my background. I spent most of my career with Utah Division of Wildlife Resources. My last 5 years there, I was the state director, so sort of Director Bruce's counterpart. But a few years back, before she came into this role, but was happy to serve as that and in that role. And gosh, when I look at all the collaboration here, we had some of that in the state of Utah, but I don't know if we had as much as you have here. And not knocking my state or anything, but again, very impressive and good to see all that. While I served as Director of Division of Wildlife, when President Trump was hired in his first term, they reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to move to Washington, D.C., I guess to the swamp, if you will, and help lead the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So in 2017, moved back to Washington, D.C., spent some time there. I think we did a lot of good work. A few things you're familiar with. We did a delisting of the grizzly bear on a portion of its range. That didn't hold up too long. That was challenged in courts and kind of got set back. Later, delisting of wolves. That too kind of got set back on its heels a little bit, but lots of good work there. I was proud to have helped open, you know, really ultimately many millions of acres for new hunting on wildlife refuges and that sort of work. Later in the term of President Trump, I was asked to take a position at running the Bureau of Land Management in Utah. So moved back, spent time there, I've been there for the last few years doing that. And then recently took this job with the Mule Deer Foundation. So I'm really excited to be here. I have a great love and passion for mule deer. I grew up in Utah, and that's kind of, I mentioned to someone, that's kind of what I did when I was a kid. I wasn't the rich kid who had horses and trailers and resources to hunt elk and things. I had to kind of go where I could walk. And so mule deer really became my passion. And now it's great to be here, great to be here with all of you. Commissioner Landval, worked with her when I was a state director and then back in Washington. She was, you know, pretty actively involved back in the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, on some of his councils and committees. So got to work with her back in DC a little bit too. This wildfire presentation, one of the slides said that there's a number of partners, again, these great partnerships committing dollars to help with some of this restoration work. And today I'm bringing some of the dollars, not all of the dollars that we've worked to raise at the Mule Deer Foundation. I've given you a handout that I think each of you have, and I put a pile on the sign-in table here if anyone else in the audience would like to have a copy. But we went out pretty hard and have been pretty aggressively sending out email blasts and things to our members and others to help raise contributions for this fire fighting effort. The dollars aren't in the millions. We're not the government with the power of taxation, if you will, but what we are is, you know, sort of the power of the people, asking them to have interest and passion and concern for restoring these areas. And the contributions that came in were from 20 different states, some as far away as Pennsylvania, you know, down New Mexico, Texas, Arizona, throughout the West, of course, here in Wyoming, Utah, California, and others. We We had two groups bringing dollars, Whitetail Unlimited from Wisconsin donated $2,500 to us that will move there, but over to you, bow hunters of Wyoming were really instrumental. But what's interesting on this chart is, we had over 200 individual donors, not groups, just people who wanted to get their credit card out and contribute some money. Average donation, $51.80. Again, that's not a lot, but I think that the sportsmen are trying to do what they can to help resolve this in the best way that we can. And we know when these big sorts of tragedies or events happen, that it takes a lot of time and money to get everyone together, but it's important we shared that. So with the dollars we've raised from these individual donors, we've put another $15,000 in mule deer fund. So we got those matches with individuals, about $25,800. We've got another $3,000 from these groups. And I'm hoping we'll be able to double this whole amount before we're done. I was up in Sheridan for a little fundraiser, and I was on a deer hunt last week, a week ago Monday. And that was the evening that I think Director Bruce and the governor went and met with the private landowners. And I don't think that was a super easy conversation. I heard that it went super well. The individual's place who I was hunting at attended that meeting as one of the private landowners, but they went into kind of a scared and nervous group of private landowners wondering what's going to happen with these elk, what's going to happen with fencing and our private lands. And I heard it was just an outstanding job by your new director. So congratulations to her and the governor for spending that time to try to coalesce all these entities. I ultimately, a bit later, was able to meet with Director Bruce in her office in Cheyenne, and she said, we need dollars, right? We filled a lot of these gaps. How can you help us? And that's part of what we're here to do today. So we're not done on this fundraising. Like I say, we may have double this amount before we're done, but I wanted to get something in front of the commission today and just share our appreciation for what you're doing and what our sportsmen, all of the sportsmen in these 20 states, no less, have been able to contribute. So thank you for that. Just a couple other quick things, and I don't want to take up all your time, but the Mule Deer Foundation, we're really working to expand and to try to take on some new ideas and new thought processes. We've spun up a private lands initiative. A lot of folks believe, get that mule deer work done just on public lands and those sorts of efforts. But as we know, most mule deer spend, all or maybe a portion of their life on private lands, and we want to take efforts to make sure we help mule deer wherever they reside. So we've gotten some good funding. We put in this northwestern Great Plains area more than $800,000 this year, much of that here in Wyoming. So we know if we can help deer in some of these private lands, that those deer will expand and get to public lands where everybody has an opportunity to participate in harvesting those deer. Some of the other work, Josh from Muley Fanatics, was talking about the kiosk, and congratulations to them for that work and some of the work they've contributed in that highway crossing. Mule Deer Foundation contributed $100,000 to that, so we're pretty proud of that. We understand the importance of migration routes and protecting those deer and other wildlife as they make those difficult journeys. Maybe just to introduce one or two of our staff here. We have 4 staff members who are pretty fundamental here in Wyoming. Sean Blazak, who I think many of you know, used to work for Game and Fish here, but we have Nicole Reed, who's one of our superstars. She's our coordinator in this part of the state, working with the Forest Service and partnership programs. She's born and raised in Rawlins and now lives, where do you live? In Encampment? Not far from here. So this was a great meeting for her to attend. But, she's a local. She understands the issues. She understands conservation. She's, professionally trained wildlife biologist. But we're also worked for Game and Fish in the past. So I'm going to give her just a moment to talk about some of the big projects that we've completed this year and a couple that we've got in the queue, because we have a lot of money coming to Wyoming. It's probably no other state that Mule Deer Foundation is working in will receive more money over the next 5 years than Wyoming. So we're proud of that. So go ahead.
President Ladwig, Director Bruce, members of the commission, thank you. I just wanted to provide you with a couple of updates from this last year, as well as forecasting some of our work for next year and a couple years beyond. So over the last year, we have been able to implement almost 37,000 acres worth of work across the state of Wyoming. That includes work on Forest Service, BLM, as well as private land. And so we're really looking to continue this work as we continue to see these wildfires, continue to see the issues that are facing mule deer. And so over the next 2 years, we have $7 million worth of habitat projects planned just in the state of Wyoming. So a lot of that has to do with the National Forest Partnership that we have at this point, some of the work going to the Shoshone National Forest, as well as the Medicine Bow National Forest that we're directly adjacent to. And I wanted to highlight one of those projects that we're actually going to be working on starting next year. It's on Battle Mountain. I wanted to highlight that since we're sitting so close to it today. So on Battle Mountain, we are planning to implement about 2,000 acres worth of habitat work and fuels reduction work there. And that's intended to be cross boundaries. So at Mule Deer Foundation, we don't believe it stopping at fence lines. And so we are working with landowners, working with other partners, and the state agencies down there. We're working with Wyoming Game and Fish to identify the best work that we can be doing, and we're doing that in a collaborative manner. And so I just wanted to highlight that project for you guys. We have several others going on in the state right now and in the future. And so we're just looking to continue that partnership with each of you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. We went to lunch today and everyone in town knows Nicole. So we had to say hi to everyone, and it's great that we have, these local partnerships. We also have, he's not here today, but Aiden Downey. He's our habitat coordinator out of Laramie, Wyoming, and he's working on Medicine Bow and some of these other forest areas talked about. And then Casey Nordine is again pretty involved in this private lands initiative that we're working at. So we're expanding a lot at MDF. We're happy to be here, happy to share some of these successes with you, happy to share some money with you. We'll get a check over right away. I just pulled this data down right before I drove over here from Salt Lake area last night. So more to follow, and we're not done on that campaign, but we really want to help you be successful, help mule deer be successful, because I think we all care a lot about mule deer. So thank you all, and I'll take, if there's any questions, happy to address them. If not, thank you for giving us some time today. So.
Any questions? Any comments?
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, both of you.
Thank you.
Sean too. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Sean.
Okay. We're gonna go into comments. Call to the public. Scott Thayer. Welcome.
Thank you, President Ledwig, Director Bruce, Commissioners, Commissioner Brokaw, thank you. My item's pretty small. It's 3.5 acres sitting out there at the Grizzly. And I can go through kind of the quick overview of that. We acquired that when Mr. and Mrs. Sewell bought out the Grizzly from Echeverry, I guess 19 or 20 somewhere. We got the 18 acres as our portion. It sits there by the corrals. And the county, to do that minor subdivision, Carbon County Planning and Zoning, let all the landowners, adjacent landowners know about it. Game and Fish, you boundary it on the south and east sides. And the director at the time listed the criteria and stuff. If we were to fence it, we were going to do this, that stuff. So we didn't do anything on it. Last year, I went out there, we marked the corners, and it's right off of the county road out there. We marked the corners, and I noticed the south fence, the existing fence that Rendell's built probably in the 50s was offline, but the department had replaced the wire. And in my fencing experience, the wire's a third, the posts are a third, and the braces are about a third of the work. And that was after notice had been given and people were copied and stuff on that. So I was able to meet with the field staff, point out the boundaries. We kind of had a discussion, said, well, maybe we can work something out, figure it out. We were agreeable to a trade, a sale, whatever, because it does fit you guys on those two sides. The BLM is on the west side, I believe, and that's where the fence is. I know 3.5 acres, no big deal. The Grizzlies, what, 40,000 acres? Big piece, but it's private property. It's ours. And I feel we've had the discussions with the staff to do it. In fact, I've been to Cheyenne twice to bring this issue up and just to see if we couldn't resolve or trade for it, you know, for the grass. Dad used to have some of the lease back before Chant got it the last couple of times, and we'd go to the Denison or Littlefield, places like that with the immigrant allotment and things. And then this year I see that the south boundary, that wire had been replaced and they're around the corrals and stuff. And I'm thinking, well, your mobilization fee for your contractor to get there was probably a little bit. And working with the field staff, we figured out there's another section there on that south pasture that is part of the Grizzly. So unfenced deeded land the Game and Fish has. And I thought, well, you just run that fence and get all that cleaned up at one time. But here I am, we haven't been able to come to anything. I'm just asking if we can figure something out and do this, because it's been over a year.
Mr. President, I guess I'm just confused. I don't really know. I don't know anything about it. What kind of a thing? I don't have any, I have no idea where the land, what it is. I guess Commissioner Prokop, you understand it?
I'm not familiar with the Grizzly. Mr. Scott had called me and asked to bring this to the commission, and I welcomed him to do so. And I talked with Greg Phipps, services chief, and he was aware of the situation. I don't know the property. I don't know it, but if we have a landowner that needs help, let's fix it and be done with it. But I don't know exactly what the ask is. Do we need to move a fence to include your 3.5 acres on your 18, or do we need to fence out all of your 18?
Mr. President, Mr. Brook, no, the boundary, so it was an old fence that Rendell's put in the 50s. It's offline. So our property boundaries go about 3.5 acres west of where that existing fence is. So last year, they replaced the wire on that after notice was given through, I believe, through the department. I don't know quite how the communication works in the department. So when the Carbon County Planning and Zoning put out for comment, here's a minor subdivision going in, and it was surveyed by WLC here in Rawlins and stuff. So the stakes were there. We went out, put in the four corners, and we saw, oh, this fence has been replaced. It was just the wire. So actually our fence boundary just goes a little bit further than that. It's probably less than 1/4 mile, and really just scrub brush and stuff like that. But it's kind of ours, and I feel like we've tried to have dialogue and conversations and stuff to get it resolved. And I said, you know, it fits the Grizzly better than anything else. It's just 18 acres. Your federal on the west side, Game and Fish on the south and the east, it would think that would be. But so here I am.
Okay, so let me get this right, Mr. President. So you built your corners on the surveyed county corners. You can't connect your H's because the old fence is off a difference of 3.5 acres, but it has new wire on it, but it's still in the wrong place. So the fence needs to be down, corrected to your 2 corner markers and put in.
Theoretically, yes, sir.
You want to build the fence? You want us to give you the fence post? You want us to build the fence?
However we want to resolve it. I was just kind of taken aback when that fence was replaced, the wire was replaced after notice had been given that this 18 acres was going to come out, and then to come back. And that was the discussion we had last year. We looked at all the corners, the 4 corners, and then to come back this year and say, well, we've done the south side. I don't know. I don't enjoy building fence that much to go have to do it 2 or 3 times. I've learned from my father.
I hear you. But Mr. President, if it would be appropriate, Angie, if you think it would be appropriate, services or one of our HMA managers familiar with the issue, can we hear from them and hear what their workload's like, if they've got materials?
President, Commissioner Brokaw, I would just commit that we'll work with you in looking at the issue. This is probably not the place and time to work out all the details, but we will sit down with you and talk it through and see what we can come up with.
Okay.
I appreciate that very much, and thank you for your time. Thank you.
Is there any other call from the public? Last chance. Before we adjourn, I would like to do something that's not on the agenda, and even the rest of the commissioners probably don't know about this, but
What are you pulling?
be careful. I would like to take the chance to tell our chief game warden, Rick King, goodbye. This is the last official meeting. And I have enjoyed working with you. You've been the guy to go to and I've had questions. You've answered my questions. You've opened your doors to talk with me and visit with me. I really appreciate that, and you will be missed. And I will open the floor to the other commissioners if they would like to make a comment.
I would, of course, want to, I respect Rick immensely. I respect his work immensely. He's one I just look up to, without he's somebody that everybody should pattern themselves after. He's a first-class quality guy. Even though I call him Chief Killjoy, because every great idea I have, he's already done it or tried it or had the answer for it. But I will miss you. I will miss you as a person. I will miss you as a chief. So thank you.
Mr. President, Chief, I appreciate you helping me with my very steep learning curve and your patience and you not laughing out loud until you get off the phone. Thank you very much for all you've done for me, for the commission, and for the department. Thank you.
Chief King, got to know you a little bit more in the task force before I got on this board, and appreciate all that you bring to the department and how much everybody respects you, and you know, just the wealth of knowledge that you could stand up on any issue and talk about. And then as I come onto this board and we talk about employee issues that you really care about, the department staff, and how do we look into those things, and so sensitive issues, and how professional you are. Certainly a role model for all department people and actually people in general. So thank you and good luck, and I'm excited for you, but you're going to be dearly missed.
Rick, you've been about as professional a guy as I've ever been around, but I thank you for all your years of dedicated service. More people like you just be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I ditto to all of that. It's going to be weird being here and you not being here. And so I hope you have some amazing things, fun things planned afterwards, certainly well deserved and earned. And yeah, just a hole that's going to be missing for quite a while. And so don't even know if we'll ever be able to replace that. But thank you very much for your service.
For sure, Mr. President. I've known Chief King a little longer than his chiefdom. Back when he was region supervisor in Laramie is my first memory. And I just had a lot of respect for him then when I got to know him and go into his office and discuss some local issues. And he was just level-headed and patient with me And when I got to be to the commission, he answered a lot of silly Ralph questions. And he is someone to admire and look up to because he's steadfast, he's loyal, and he is a bulldog. He just works tirelessly. And those are great qualities.
Ready, come on up. They didn't clue me in on their little plan. Everything's a secret. So obviously, whenever you spend this much time, you get some little goodies, Rick. And we took Rick to lunch, but we have one goodie that's not here that was at a request of Rick, I believe. I think Chief Osterlin talked to your real boss at home. And she alluded that you might want a frame of a thoroughfare cabin. So that is still being worked right now, but this is a box for all your years of service, Rick. And it's Richard L. King, presented upon your retirement in grateful recognition for 26 years of service to the state of Wyoming and the Game and Fish Department, January 3rd, 2024. So there's that, Rick. And then the standard issued plaque, Game and Fish, Richard L. King, 1998 to 2025. Appreciation of all your years of service, Rick. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
The mic is yours, Rick. Take it up.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I don't think I can stand up here too long because I'll just turn into an emotional wreck. But thank you so much. It really, it's been just a privilege and an honor to serve as the chief and to work for the department for all these years. Just absolute dream come true for me, and I'm certainly gonna miss it, but I know that the department is in great hands. Director Bruce and whoever fills my role and all the other positions down the chain will be filled by great people, and the department's in great shape. And it's a wonderful state with an amazing commission, and so for that, I'm super excited and just appreciate the recognition, and can't say thank you enough. So thank you.
Is that it for the day? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Mr. Bell?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Meeting adjourned.